Yeah.
Wait, hello?
Alright. Hey, Destiny.
Oh, wait, can you actually hear me
what's
now?
happening? No, not. Yeah, I can hear you now. Hey, Destiny, we're big fans of you, dude. Just wanted to let you know that before we got into the thing.
Oh, shit, you dragged me.
Yeah,
Oh, hey, what's up? Okay, hi. Okay.
Hey, dude. Yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah, we just wanted to clarify, right? So, you can, any question we offer you, right? You can feel free not to answer it if it's too personal.
I'm an open book, dude. Ask away. Ask anything.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go, dude.
Yeah, alright, sounds good. Second of all, right, if you have to go or if there's anything, like, whenever you want to end the debate.
I got 12 hours. I'm ready.
Alright.
Shit is my job, alright?
Sounds good.
Some of those questions.
Fine. Yeah, some of them are pretty deep, but yeah, okay, fine. We'll just start with it.
I have one request. A demand, actually.
Alright.
If there are any questions involving gnomes, please don't ask me them, okay? It's a dumb fucking meme, just in case they got into here somehow, okay?
Alright, I got you.
Okay, thanks. Alright, that's it.
We're filtering through the questions anyway, so none of the dumb shit will hopefully get through.
Okay.
What's happening here? Okay. Are we ready?
We're ready to go whenever you guys are.
Alright.
Do I move back up?
I'll get you. 1 second.
Okay.
Hey, man.
Hi.
Okay.
Alright, yep. Okay, I think we're all here. Okay. Alright, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Destiny AMA. The chat provided above obviously will be your resource for asking questions. We have the one and only Omni Destiny joining us today to answer all of your questions so we can get some insight on his life and his gripe with veganism, obviously. I'll be sure to link his YouTube channel and description right at the end of this. Destiny, thank you for joining us. How about you start us off with who you are, what your content is centered around, and what you plan on doing in the future?
Hey, my name is Destiny. In real life, I go by Stephen Bonnell. I used to be a video game streamer. I still do a lot of video games, but then I've kind of gotten into politics a lot recently, and a lot of people kind of know me from the political conversations that I have on my live stream and then on YouTube.
Yeah. All right. So we'll just go straight in with the questions. So the first one comes from Sir Humphrey. And his question is: doesn't democracy inevitably lead to populism and demagoguery? I don't know how to say that word.
Jesus, that's a heavy fucking question. I don't know. Sounds like a good question for a poli-sci major. As far as I'm aware, because I had questions about this, so I was curious. From what I've been told, populism comes and goes. Basically, eventually people get fed up with the system. A populist candidate comes up, everybody supports them, and then after they spend some time in office, people realize they don't get shit done, and then it kind of goes away for a little bit. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know, like, theory of government or how populism or demagoguery comes or goes. Demagoguery is like a thing that's kind of always been present in our politics. As long as it's like an appeal to popularity, right? You're always going to have demagogues. So, but yeah, I don't know, like the cyclical nature of populism. I don't know if I'm like equipped to answer that.
Okay, yeah, sure. I see. Okay, so the second one, it comes from Blackburn, and I think he wants to ask it himself. So I'm just gonna be over here and unmute him. Right, Blackburn, you have the chat. Have the opportunity.
Alright, hey Destiny, why are you against capital punishment?
Why am I against capital punishment?
Yeah.
I guess in general, I view that like punishment. I'm just not a big fan of like when I look at like criminal justice or I look at any form of punishment, it's supposed to be like rehabilitation. I think like the goal is to take somebody that doesn't work in society and then make it so they do work in society. Like if you look at children or animals, for instance, when you punish them, usually the goal is to correct a behavior. So I think that punishment should kind of fit like a model that corrects behavior and rehabilitates people. Capital punishment doesn't seem to do that. I mean, I guess unless the person is literally so far gone that we think there's no chance of them ever being rehabilitated, in which case, but I guess go for it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, sure. So this second question, this other question comes from Sig Natural, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, you may be familiar with them. He's, prominent member in the Destiny community. So I'll just be sure to unmute him here. Go ahead, Sig.
Hello? Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Oh,
I can
man, I
hear
can
you.
speak? Oh, cool. All right, yeah, what was the question? Is this the one? Okay, yeah, do you still consider yourself an anti-theist? Should the entire world move away from spiritual thought, if so?
Yikes. Okay. These are really big philosophy questions, and there are people that have argued both sides better than I can. So let me preface this by saying this is my very personal, subjective opinion, okay? I am very much a materialist. I am very much against any type of like spiritualism or anything like that for a variety of reasons. So personally, I think that more people should move away from religion. That being said, I mean, religion offers some value in terms of forming communities and communities building up around religion. There's a lot of charity work that goes on with religions. There's a lot of like empirical good that's done by religious organizations. I guess I would argue that I would hope that we could continue to do that empirical good without religion. And then, we can leave the spiritualism and all the bad stuff that comes with religion, as well as the religion. But yeah. Yeah, I guess I would answer that like it would be cool if we could leave religion behind and keep like the good acts that we still do without it. I don't know if that's even possible.
You remind me of Sam Harris in this regard.
Oh, please don't compare me to Harris. I fucking hate that guy.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of religion because it comes with a lot of baggage. The problem is that if you have to lie to somebody to make them do something good, then the lies can lead to bad things as well. So, for instance, people's stances on things like abortion or a stance on like how should we educate people publicly? Is the Earth 6,000 years old? And different kind of weird moral positions that people can take as a result of their religion and not any type of actual rational thought. Those are all like negative aspects of religion. So, yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah. Sure. So we'll go on to the next question, and this one comes from Justin, and Justin wants to ask this himself, so I'll be sure to unmute you. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh shit! Hold on. Let me see what question I had before. Give me a sec.
Any one of them.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite hero to play in League?
I play Draven most of the time.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Those
Sure.
people.
Simple enough.
Okay.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.
Next one comes from actual communist boy, and as you can tell from his name, he's muted and deafened himself, so I'll just ask it on his behalf. What are your thoughts on the inevitable demise of capitalism due to the falling rate of profit causing unceasing econo-political crisis?
Oh man, dude, these are like above my pay grade. Everything I know, the little bit I know of economics, is always like analyzed through a capitalist lens. So any solutions that it would give you to things like income inequality or the uneven distribution of profits to, I guess, capitalists, people that own capital in the U.S., I would always try to solve these through the framework of capitalism. So some sort of redistributive government policy or something. I don't know if what comes after capitalism or if something comes after capitalism. I don't really know the answer to that question. I'm not sure. I think this requires like a pretty solid understanding of how economies and governments interact with one another, and I don't know it to that level.
See, I wasn't lying when I said this as a community of academics, right? We'll just move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't this like what Das Kapital is about? The whole thing by Marx? Doesn't he talk about like what happens after capitalism and shit? I don't know. I'm sure he's got some good things to say on the subject.
Maybe. Okay, sure. And Wally has a question he'd like to ask you, and he'd like to ask you this personally. So go ahead, Wally.
All right, cool. Hey, what's up? All right, so all right, this might be a long question. So I've seen you debate about veganism and morality, and I've heard you say that you don't think there's objective morality, which I agree with. And when we talk about politics, I think pretty much every political statement, is at the root comes from either, maybe it's for the greater good, it helps the most people, or, it helps me. It ultimately has to come down to a moral statement. And because, there's no objective morality, does that mean that there's no objective political truth, like at all? That's basically it. Well,
I mean, I agree with your premise that political truths are, I mean, you're essentially asking questions of philosophy, right? Anytime we ask an ought question, it's essentially boils down to an ethical or philosophical question. So, like, what ought we do in society? Via policy, ought we help people that are poor? Ought we help people that are homeless or whatever? So, insofar as can there be objective political truths? I mean, you can make factual, like descriptive claims, I guess. So, for instance, in a democracy, people vote for the government. I mean, that's a true statement. But if you're asking if we can make true statements about how ought government act, like government ought take care of, poor people in society, government ought not interfere with business. I mean, I don't think you can make an objectively truthful claim there, like in a vacuum. We have to do it like under some moral framework that we all agree on in order to start making like statements of what government ought do, right?
Yeah, no, it's just hard because I've seen a lot when you debate people, a lot of the time you kind of like, and I mean, everyone does this. You have to skip over that because you don't want to debate. You don't want to go, okay, let's debate morality. So you'll kind of disagree on morality, but you'll be debating about politics and stuff. And at the root, you guys just disagree. So it's hard to debate. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah, I think so. There are two things I want to say to that. One, the debates that I do have nothing to do with like how what an intelligent real world debate should sound like on this topic. This is something that I discovered, unfortunately, really quickly. I debate like the lowest dredges of stupidity. It's just nothing that I debate should be like referenced as like, well, this would be like a good, like if somebody were to say, what's a good position to take on this form of government, I would never recommend like, oh, well, watch this debate with Roaming Millennial or Sargon of Akkad or Andy Worsey or like, these are not good debates. It's literally just people who are too fucking stupid to even talk about what they're talking about, and then we just kind of shout at each other for a while. They're not productive at all in that sense. And then the and then the second part is that I think that as a society, even though we all kind of have different fundamental moral platforms, we share enough in common that two people of different platforms can kind of come together and make an agreement on what like a policy should be. That's kind of the magic of society, that a religious person and an atheist person can still agree on certain fundamental tenets. For instance, murder and stealing is wrong, so we can make laws that punish people for murdering and stealing and stuff like that. Now, when you get into more gray areas like, well, what should taxation look like? What should social welfare look like? Those honestly become questions of personal philosophy more, and that people don't argue that, which I think they should. But for a lot of the basics, I think we kind of can come to an agreement on things.
Okay, sure, fair enough. The next question I want to ask is Normal Man. So, yeah, go ahead, Normal Man.
All right, lads. My question was, wouldn't you agree that the left is responsible for pushing the alt-right or the far-right, whatever you want to call it, underground via shaming tactics? And would you want to stop this to encourage debate?
I go back and forth on this a lot. I actually radically changed my viewpoint on this a while ago. If you would have watched anything I talked about like 3 or 4 years ago, I was pretty much like a Dave Rubin copy-pasted, like the free marketplace of ideas will always prevail. Okay, so two parts. So firstly, I do believe that there has probably been, I'm only speaking in the United States. I cannot speak specifically to other, even Western countries, okay? But I can say specifically in the United States, I feel like a lot of racist and kind of disgusting thought, I say disgusting, kind of begging the question, right? From my point of view, disgusting thought has been kind of shushed and pushed underground a lot in like the workplace, in Hollywood, and all of our big like culture outlets. And I think that it kind of festered and we didn't realize it. And I think this is kind of evident during the presidential election. There were a lot of times when even I, and I like to consider myself like pretty understanding of most people, there were a lot of statements that Trump said where I was like, okay, wow, this is way too extreme. Even for Republicans, like people aren't going to be okay with this type of thought. However, not only were people okay with it, a lot more people than we thought would be okay with it were okay with it. So it's obvious that shushing it and just kind of pushing it under the carpet doesn't seem to work as well as we would want it to, because almost half the country is still in favor of Trump, or voted for him at least. I don't know, his approval is like 40% now, but so I don't know in terms of shushing it. I don't know. I don't think that seems to be a great tactic. Now, for the second part, in terms of like debating it, the big problem that I run into is a lot of people are either intentionally dishonest, which is something that I have to deal with so much, is people taking things I say out of context, misquoting me, and attributing to me statements that I've never made or don't support. And a lot of people are grossly ill-equipped to have these conversations. And I think that these two things do a great damage to the public discourse. So, for instance, we can look at this, Tony, is it Tony Robinson? With the guy that just got arrested in the UK. Do you know his name? It's Tony Robbins, right?
Tommy Robbins.
Tommy Robbins, yeah. Just looking around, like kind of like right-leaning or center or skeptic-leaning circles, he was arrested because of free speech. Like he was arrested because because they didn't like his political views. Like, oh wow, okay, that's a whole different conversation than he was arrested because of a law in the UK that makes it so that you can gag certain reporting on different types of lawsuits for a certain amount of time. Those are two totally different conversations, And I think there is a valid conversation to be had about the UK's practice here, but you can't even have that conversation because so many people are lying about why he actually got arrested. So like in terms of like a free marketplace of ideas, it's really hard to make that work. when one side is so fucking dishonest about every fucking thing they say. And this is the issue that I have with like Trump right now. Again, to go back, like free marketplace of ideas. Okay, well, Trump just tweeted that 3 million illegal immigrants voted in the election with absolutely no evidence. Like, how is this a marketplace of ideas when I have to engage with people that unironically think that there's like 500,000 buses of immigrants being bussed into places and nobody saw? Like, this is ridiculous, you know? Wait, am I allowed to say fuck here?
Liberals at it again. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh,
Dude.
okay,
You can say
sorry.
whatever you want.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So next question comes from Evie, and it's about transgenderism. Go ahead, Evie.
Hey there. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on transgenderism in like American society, and why you would sort of hold certain opinions about transgender people.
Wait, which opinions?
Just your opinions on like how they can exist in society, why they would exist. I guess it's.
So this is actually something that I've been like wrestling with quite a bit recently. This is I don't know how like in depth like I should answer this. I guess to be somewhat brief. I mean, like, I'm pretty big on everybody doing whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody. As far as I'm aware, as far as the APA is concerned, the most effective ways to quote-unquote treat, I guess, gender dysphoria, which is the incredibly discomforting feeling you get when your body doesn't match what you think it should, that some of the most effective ways to treat that are things like transitioning. So I mean, as long as that remains the case, which is what I believe it is right now, I mean, I'm in support of anybody doing what they need to do to not kill themselves and to feel better about themselves. So that, I guess that's like from like a medical treatment point of view. In terms of like stuff like bathrooms and whatnot, I don't really, I don't know. A lot of these things I just don't care about. Like, Republicans talk about like transgender people going into bathrooms and raping kids, and it just sounds really fucking stupid to me. For instance, like, I wouldn't want to send my girl into a little bathroom with a fully grown man. It's like, okay, well, I have a 7-year-old son. Should I be scared of sending him into a bathroom with a fully grown man? Like, I don't know. These arguments don't make sense. So, I mean, I'm okay with people using whatever bathrooms they want. Yeah, I guess those are like my answers from like a policy point of view. Did you want something different or?
No, that pretty much answers it.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, so this one comes from me. I wanted to ask you if you could elaborate on your contention with the LGBT community and their need to categorize. Do you not think collective identity or labels is important for marginalized groups?
This is something that I've had to wrestle with a lot over the past couple years. It's probably important. I guess like the two things that I struggle with is you have the world as you want it to be, and then the world as it is. And sometimes I argue a little bit too much concerning a world that I would want to exist rather than what we have now. I mean, like, I would argue that I think that you shouldn't need to label yourself in order to get some kind of value out of yourself, that labels and belonging to groups and all of that just kind of stifles like individual thought. And I would argue that that's generally a negative thing, that I think being as individual as possible is generally a good thing. I say that though, however, and I mean, I make my whole living being an individual, and I'm also not part of any marginalized or oppressed group as far as I know, except for being a gamer, which is the most oppressed group. So I mean, it's easy for me as kind of like a white straight guy to say that. I do acknowledge that there are probably benefits. So I guess let me do kind of an agreeable statement. I acknowledge that there are benefits if you're a marginalized group and identifying with certain groups, because there is some power or recluse or solace to be found there. I just don't like it when people make that like their entire identity. That kind of bothers me sometimes. Like, I feel like I feel this way about all people that identify heavily with certain groups, that once that becomes your entire identity, I feel like you kind of pigeonhole yourself into like a kind of like a bad area where you're not able to, I guess, be as much of an individual as you could be.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I don't know if you guys are allowed to, but if I ever answer something, you've got like a follow-up question, or you think I could express something better, you can always ask for clarification, and I can give it.
Yeah, sure. No, I was just satisfied with the answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Next person is.
And then I'm sorry, real quick, because I don't know.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I don't know who knows me. I was just kidding about the gamers being the most marginalized group. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. For sure. I could. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Do you think Jordan Peterson is
Sorry, I burped.
creating a net positive impact on public discourse, and what are your personal views on his views?
Absolutely not. Jordan Peterson is the epitome of. He kind of reminds me of Ben Carson, and I really feel bad saying this because I don't have the qualifications that he does. Jordan Peterson, everything that I've read from Jordan Peterson. No, I haven't read the 12 Rules for Life. I'm sorry if that really bothers a Peterson fan. Everything that I've read about him in terms of like his self-help stuff or like his clinical psych stuff seems to be overwhelmingly positive, and I haven't personally heard anybody attack him over that. But the problem is that he veers outside of his lane, and it says the dumbest fucking shit constantly. I think that all of his political opinions are fucking idiotic. Everything that he has to say about Bill C-16, which is what he got popular on, is incredibly fucking stupid and short-sighted. Everything he says about like society and his the normative philosophical claims he makes about like what society ought be because of what currently works, like gender roles and all this stuff. I really, really, really don't think he's equipped to have these conversations. It's not even so much that I don't like his opinion. It's just that I just don't feel like he should really be digging into it too much because he just says a lot of really dumb shit. I think his recent AMA was an example of that. I think every single subreddit like had a field day with some of the incredibly fucking stupid answers he gave. Like the postmodernist Marxist people, and Nazism is an atheist ideology. So much dumb shit that he says outside of his very narrow kind of field of expertise.
Do you think in terms of like self-help and like the whole psychology aspect like of Jordan Peterson, do you think there's any benefit there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think he reveals that we do have a problem right now in society with young men. I think that when you've been part of a majority group, majority power for so long, somebody sent me a really great paper on this a long time ago. I wish I fucking saved it. But there's this impression, if you've ever been sitting in traffic and you're kind of like dazed out and you look to the side and all the other cars start going and you didn't realize it, you can get like a weird vertigo feeling where you're moving backwards for a second. And it feels like white people in society are experiencing that, where you've held the majority power for so long. As other groups become empowered, you start to get this feeling that you're losing ground somehow, even though that's demonstrably not true in society. White people are doing perfectly fucking fine. And I think that you have to address that. Even if it's a silly feeling, you have to address it somehow. And I think Peterson is filling that hole, which is not good, because somebody more positive should be filling it. But yeah, I think there is like a group of men that feel like they're kind of getting fucked by society right now because they don't have like a big movement that speaks for them, just because they've always been kind of the majority power holder.
Okay, yeah, sure. All right, Socrates, go ahead. Your question.
Hi, Destiny. In a previous debate with Jontron, in which he said that the United States was built for white people, and he referenced the posterity lines in the Federalist Papers.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like you didn't get to respond fully to it, and I was wondering if you could respond more fully to it now.
Yeah, I mean there are so many problems with that statement. So, firstly, the Federalist Papers were written as an attempt to unite the United States people together. It's literal propaganda to try to get people together to form a federal government, right? That was the whole point of the Federalist Papers, was to try to get people together to put aside their stateliness and then come together and form like a federal United States government. The idea that those were written and are indicative of the idea that the United States is only built for white people is a little bit absurd for two big reasons. The first one is that if this was so fucking important that white people were the only people that the U.S. was built for, why wouldn't you put it in the Constitution when so much stuff is like clearly spelled out in the Constitution? Like they were pretty... Like all of our forefathers were pretty prolific writers. Like they had there's all the Federalist Papers, or the different books and autobiographies. Like there's tons of shit that was written. Why is it that not a single one of them ever wrote, like the U.S. is only for white people? So that's like the first part that's really ridiculous. The second part that's really ridiculous is that even if you were to grant that okay, we'll say it's written for white people, the definition of white has changed so much over the over the past 200 years that to pretend that their definition of white is the same as our definition is ridiculous. And I believe there's like a passage from Benjamin Franklin talking about swarthy Germans and shit, about how the Anglo-Saxons and I think the Irishmen, it was like the Anglo-Saxons, one other group of people, not Irishmen, it was like Anglo-Saxons and one other group of people were the only true white people left in the world, and that everybody else was of swarthy complexion. I don't know. Like I think it's a really ridiculous and kind of asinine argument to try to reach back to one word written by one founding father from one Federalist paper to try to argue that he was saying the whole country should be for white people. Especially when that guy made because that was John. What was the name of the guy that wrote that? Do you know the guy that wrote that Federalist paper? Because that same guy was a legislator, I think, in Massachusetts, who also tried to make it so that like all Catholics would be banned from the state. And like he was more clear on getting rid of Catholics than he was on getting rid of non-white people. So I mean, like I don't know. That's like. I think those arguments are really dumb and really... Oh, John Jay. It's John Jay, yeah. I think those arguments are really, really, really stupid and really short-sighted. It seems like people are kind of like, they already have their conclusion, and they're digging really hard to find like one thing that will support it, and then they'll ignore everything else that kind of flies contrary to it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay. So the next person going is Rope Bunny. Rope Bunny, do you want to ask a question? Rope Bunny?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have any games or movies you're really looking forward to this year?
Nope. I'm just waiting for the next big game to come out that's not fucking Fortnite.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, simple. Okay, next person is Sunshine. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Why do you think there's a lack of leftist political speakers like yourself on the internet, as opposed to the large number of right-wing speakers who are gotten extremely popular?
I mean, I can think of a number of reasons why. I think the two big ones I'll go with. One is honestly probably the most likely. The internet is primarily composed of white men. I mean, it's just the biggest demographic on the internet, at least in the West, I'll say. I'm sorry, let me clarify that. In the West, I would say that white men are probably the biggest demographic, so you're going to have a big selection bias there in terms of political views that you're going to select for. So I would say that's probably a big part of it. The second part that... well, maybe there's two or three. I guess like another part might be that like Republicans, I shouldn't say that. People on the right seem to be more willing to fight dirty or to be edgy than people on the left. People on the left hardcore purity test each other like motherfuckers, and people on the right don't seem to be as interested in that. So maybe there's like more appeal there to white guys because you can be more edgy when you're on the right. And then the third thing, this is kind of a more in-depth thing that I don't know how to overcome this. I think that left positions are really hard to explain versus right ones that feel incredibly intuitive, right? And intuition is so damaging when you try to understand like social theory or large groups of people or whatever. Like your intuition just fucks you so hard. So like an example of this would be, somebody complains, hey, women are being pushed out of the sciences. Well, as a right-leaning person, I can give a number of incredibly powerful statements that make that sound ridiculous. Like, okay, well, if you're a woman and you're getting pushed out of the sciences, if somebody tells you that you can't do it and that's enough for you to stop, you would never going to make it anyway. People in the sciences are strong-minded people that persevere against all odds, and they work really hard, and engineering school or whatever you go to is going to be way harder than some guy standing outside the school saying you shouldn't go there, you're a woman, right? An answer like that it's very satisfying. It feels intuitively correct. It reinforces your own points of view and social norms, and like that's it. But as a left-leaning person, if I want to attack an answer like that, like geez, like I have to this is like a 20-minute discussion on like, okay, well, firstly, in order for you to make the decision to go to school, we have to go all the way back to when you're literally fucking 3 years old and your parents are buying toys for you. And now I have to make sure that you acknowledge that psychology is a real science. I have to make sure that you are at least somewhat aware of how conditioning works and how different psych experiments show how vulnerable people are to groupthink and mob mentality and whatnot. And then we've got to go through how all the different parts of society can play into enforcing and reinforcing different points of view in the genders. Like, there's so much groundwork that I have to cover that is unintuitive. In that it's just really fucking hard. So like if two people wanted to make a video on, well, are women being pushed out of the sciences or not? The right-leaning video is 5 minutes long, has incredibly powerful one-liners, and has a number of great examples. And then the left-leaning person's is going to be incredibly dry. It's going to be at least 30 minutes long. It's going to cover a lot of stuff that you are intuitively going to reject because nobody wants to be told that that their entire life has been like conditioned by society. Everybody wants to feel like they're in charge of their own destiny, that they're the ones that made all the decisions. So like it's just really, really hard. You basically arguing left-leaning points against like idiots is so impossible. Like, Jesus fuck, it's so difficult to do.
Indeed, black people can solve all their problems by making better decisions.
Yeah, by getting that was
Um,
Sargon's argument that if black people just and
Yeah,
so
Sargon's argument.
this goes into what I said earlier about people are too stupid to have these conversations. Sargon gives me a chart and it shows black married wages and single married wages. He says, look, if black people just get married, then they'll do better off. So we're ignoring so many things. Firstly, that you can even just make the decision to get married, that there aren't precursors to this that cause you to get married, right? Which he totally fucking won't acknowledge. And two, the fact that a chart that shows you the difference between earnings in married black people and single black people doesn't tell you that if the single become married, that all of a sudden that means that they'll make more money. The chart, like those graphs don't even illustrate that, right? So there's like a lot of like data comprehension problems that people on the right tend to have where they can't read charts. When I got into an argument about gun deaths before, some guy argued with me in Australia, well, gun deaths have been held constant ever since Port Arthur, and you told me that gun deaths declined. And I was like, okay, but the population has almost doubled in Australia over the past like 30 years. So of course, and he's like, oh, you want to make the per capita argument. What the fuck? Yeah, what the fuck do you mean? Of course I'm talking per capita. What kind of dumb motherfucking statement is that? It's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, there's just, fuck me,
Nah,
dude.
it's okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Fizzy, you're going next. I'm unmuting you. Go ahead with your question.
Hello. What are your thoughts on intervening abroad to protect human rights?
Oof. I mean, I would argue that we should do that, but we're not in a position to do it right now as the United States government. I think that individual organizations make great contributions insofar as like medicine or research or vaccinations and stuff for countries in Africa and whatnot. I think that we do a great deal there for our private entities. Doing it from a government point of view is really fucking hard because most people don't know what America does in terms of like overseas stuff. For instance, like a lot of people would say like, oh, should we help people overseas? A lot of people on the left and right will be like, oh yeah, well we help like Israel all the time. You fight against the terrorist Palestinians. Like, okay, so that's your idea of like overseas helping like impoverished people and shit. I mean, like, it's something where I guess to go back, like I would agree with it in principle, but we already have like such weird fucking views of what we do overseas, and honestly, we don't give a fuck about things like south of the fucking equator anyway. Like nobody cares about Africa, nobody cares about South America. We only care about the Middle East, and that's just because of Russia and everything. Yeah. I'm sorry, I guess so. World as it is and world as I want it to be. In a world that I would want to exist, we would engage in a lot of help for other countries. Because I think that when every country does well, I think that the entire world does better, right? Imagine if I could video game stream and people in Africa were watching my stream because everybody there is like super connected to the internet and plugged into our culture and shit. That would be awesome for me and for everybody. It's more customers for your products. But in the world as it exists now, it seems like we have so many more internal problems to overcome before we can get like a comprehensive government track together to like help other countries. So I guess we just continue to rely on private entities to do it, and then a little bit of social funding.
Fair enough. All right. Christopher, you're going next. Go ahead, Chris.
Hello?
Yeah,
Right.
we can hear you.
So, Destiny. After my ex-wife left me, I started watching the stream quite a bit. It's pretty funny. And I'm a huge fan, okay? I love it. I love the stream, right? It really gets me off, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Like, I wake up in the morning, I get on live stream fails, I look for some clips of you, I maybe, nut one off, maybe two if I'm...
Thank you for the question, Christopher. All right, next person going. Sig, you want to ask your question again, maybe? Wait, let me see where we are. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead, Sig.
Hello? Which one should I ask here? I should probably ask an earlier one that I put in. Where's one of the earlier ones? Do you think Twitch is going in the right direction content-wise?
I don't think Twitch has a direction right now. It's a big problem with the company. Basically, I think that Twitch has just kind of like been sitting on its ass and doesn't really have to do anything because there's no real competition. And I think that the corporate internal culture of Twitch is like a huge mess after the acquisition and everything. So I don't think that Twitch has like a coherent direction that it's headed in. It just kind of like is just kind of chilling and then banning people randomly, and yeah.
To ask a follow-up, just a simple follow-up in regards to the question, like, do you believe that Twitch is like? Do you think it's better if Twitch stayed gaming focused, or if this whole IRL streaming thing? Do you think it should go into that direction more? Like, do you think Twitch should stay focused, or do you think Twitch should branch out in the way that it seems to be doing? Hardest question here, huh?
Yeah, well, so this is a difficult question. It's because this is a philosophical question. What ought Twitch do? Should Twitch branch out and become a larger site where gaming is just a subsection of the site, or should Twitch remain as its site that only is dedicated to gaming? I mean, so arguments on both sides. I mean, if you want to argue that it should remain true to gaming, then all the resources would be focused on gaming. The site's features and everything would be built around gaming. So arguably, your experience for gaming would be better. Would be the argument there. But on the other end, you could argue if Twitch branches out, if they get more money, more sponsorships, more eyes on the site, you could get more viewers that happen to stroll over to your stream just because there's so many people on the site. And Twitch making more money means they could invest maybe even more money in the gaming section if they choose to do so. I don't know what the correct answer is there. I guess it would depend on how Twitch actually allocates its resources and what their like overall mission statement is.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sure. Next person is Wrinkle Lawrence, and apparently he wants to ask you this question. Person, yeah, go ahead, Wrinkle.
Yeah, so Destiny, so I wanted to ask you, do you think the left has gone too progressive too fast?
I mean, I don't even think the left is that progressive. Oh man, dude, Republicans are degenerates. I don't know how to. You're basically like answering me like if I were to go into a society full of people that were constantly raping and murdering each other, and then I were to say like, hey guys, like maybe at the very least you shouldn't murder people or rape people until they're at least 18, and then some guy's like, you're being way too extreme, way too quickly. It's like maybe for that society you are. You know, in terms of the United States, is the left being too progressive? I mean, when like fucking, is it 70% of Republicans don't even think that climate change is real? I don't fucking know. I don't know how to answer that question. It's like, it's really frustrating. It's really difficult. Yeah, I don't know. For all my debate stuff, to kind of go back to this, or to reel it into this, I'm not like trying to convince people of my arguments. I just want my argument to be the most true, and I hope that I convince people of that, you know, in some ways. I actually don't focus on rhetoric that exists to persuade people to my side, not because I think it's better or worse. I'm just not as interested in it. So your question is kind of hinting at like, what's the best way to bring people over to your side, and is the left becoming too progressive to do that? I don't know what the actual answer to that question is. I don't know how you get your message across to somebody that lives in like rural Montana or rural Nebraska or rural Mississippi. I don't know how you communicate with those people because I don't have the patience to do it. I mean, I can't even communicate with non-rural people that are fucking idiots. So I don't know what the answer is. I can't give you a great answer there. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Next person is Sir Humphrey, and I believe he wants to ask you this question. Person, 1 second. Sir Humphrey, you're unmuted. Go ahead, sir. Hello?
Rip.
Okay, sure. Okay, we'll just move on to the next person then. Paul Monkey. And he also wants to ask you this question, Vichy. Go ahead.
Which one? There's a lot of them.
Yeah, anyone.
Oh,
like,
it's the first
one.
Okay. Are the grassroots of the right being manipulated for corporate gain?
Yeah, like Koch brothers stuff. Is that?
No, mostly like. Are the talking points being fed to them by right-wing media? Placed there intentionally to sort of manipulate their views so it would be favorable to corporations?
The answer to that question might be yes or no, but I would argue that it's irrelevant. Let's say you've got a room full of like 50 people, and you know, 2 people come in and they start sharing their Nazi beliefs with 25 of them, and in like 2 days, the 25 people are full-fledged Nazis. I don't think I would ever walk in and go, well, hold on, did the 2 people that initially come in, do you think these guys were just like instigators or not instigators, but these guys are just like propaganda artists and they convinced them of Nazism? Like my concern would be, how the fuck did 25 people get pulled into Nazism so fucking fast? Like, what the fuck happened? So like when I look at the right-wing people in the US, my concern wouldn't be that like a couple of people have hijacked the movement. You know, people argue like Glenn Beck did this to the Tea Party and whatnot, or you know, different shit like this goes on. My primary concern would be, how can so many people be persuaded into such insanely fucking stupid viewpoints? That would be my primary concern, because as long as it's possible for that to happen, It doesn't matter if you identify, a couple people manipulating movements. Those people will always exist, and they'll always come back. So I think you should try to strengthen your population through education or whatever so that can't happen, rather than focus on when it does happen, if that makes sense.
All right. Fair enough. Next person is Ratpack. Go ahead,
Hello?
Ratpack.
Hi,
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
nice to meet you. I just got one question. Do you condone things like political violence, so like i.e. like antifascista, or even things like the Daesh attack on Charlie Hebdo? Or right-wing violence as well. They do it all the time as well.
Yeah, so to be clear, I've heard political violence used as like political violence means deplatforming somebody or enacting a policy to mess with somebody, not actually like violence. I've heard a distinguishment, or somebody will distinguish between those two terms. When you say political violence, do you mean like including violent acts of like actually killing people, or?
Yes, I think like attacking people, trying to physically harm people.
Sure. So I would really have to go issue by issue here on this. And this gets into some really complicated shit. So in my personal philosophy right now, I think that, so if I talk about like deplatforming, I am 100% in favor of deplatforming people that either intentionally lie or engage in gross intellectual dishonesty, whether intentional or not. And obviously determining who does that might be a challenge in and of itself, but I mean, I'm in favor of that. So people that intentionally misquote data or misrepresent arguments or mischaracterize people continuously over and over again, or lie about like news stories and shit. So somebody like Donald Trump, for instance. That's on one hand. On the second hand, in terms of violence, I think it would depend on the policy point. Like, let's say somebody in the United States was advocating for voter ID laws that weren't done in the racist ways that Republicans often try to implement it. You might disagree on a number of reasons why voter ID is bad, but I don't know if you have a right to like enact violence against that person. That seems really extreme. Let's say, however, you're a minority figure, or even not a minority figure, but let's say you're a black guy in the United States, and there's a guy that's literally advocating for policy positions that involve like removing you from the U.S., like forming an ethno-state or whatever. There might be philosophical justifications there for you to enact violence on that person, because if they had the opportunity to, they would literally remove your family by state-sanctioned force from the country. So maybe there's an argument to be made that you have the right then to enact violence against them in kind of like a self-defense measure, maybe. All of these would have to be taken like point by point. I'm not sure, but like I could see arguments being made for forms of political violence. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
The only thing, just to be clear there, the only thing that's scary is that, and I'm acknowledging the scariness, is that you can go down a lot of like really bad roads that way. Really bad, like, people just start killing everybody over their political opinions and shit. And and like tyranny of the majority is an issue that you might face there as well, right? Well, the strongest people are just going to fuck everybody over, and then that's going to repeat indefinitely. These might be negative consequences of that type of viewpoint. I don't know how you would account for all of that. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. The next person is Board Pants, and I believe he wants to ask you this question himself. Go ahead, Board Pants.
What do you think are the best and worst ways for leftists to fight back against the tide of alt-right?
Thank you.
I don't know, man. I really don't. I don't know. I really don't know. The big problem is that okay, so everything I say, I'm going to say this another time, okay? Everything I say is very specific to the United States. It may or may not apply to other Western countries, but everything I say is specific to the United States. So just keep that in mind when I speak about like left versus right. If I say left, I'm talking Democrats, not socialist communists. And if I say right, I'm generally talking Republicans or conservatives insofar as they're defined in the United States. One of the big problems we have in the U.S. is that on the left, where it seems like in general they're more concerned with things like morality or being consistent in your beliefs and whatnot, generally, than people are on the right. And I think that Republicans have this political tenacity where they will just fight viciously and ruthlessly for things like winning elections, and the left doesn't seem to be as willing to engage in that because they kind of look down on it. I mean, like a recent example of this that I would point to would be people like like Al Franken stepping down, I don't think that if Al Franken was a Republican, I don't think that guy ever fucking resigns. Not in a million fucking years. You know, he would be accusing the left of like deep state conspiracies, just like they did with Roy Moore when they ran him. You know, they accuse everybody that's accusing them of being a leftist plant and whatnot. So, it seems like the right is much more willing to engage in kind of like this crazy character assassination bullshit. I mean, like, compare any of the behavior of Obama or even Bill Clinton to Trump, who was like nicknaming all of his adversaries. You know, Trump drove the fucking birther movement where he thought that Obama was born from Kenya. Yeah, so I'm sorry, your original question is like, what do you do as a left-leaning person to defeat a right-leaning person? The thing is that, like, if you've ever studied like fallacious arguments, and by study I mean read a Wikipedia article, the reason why fallacious arguments exist is because they're very powerful. They work. Whether or not you like that, they absolutely work. So things like ad hominems and character assassinations are very effective political tools. So as long as the right is willing to utilize these and the left isn't, I don't know how the left wins, like, publicly, other than on, I guess, on like policy positions or something.
Right. I don't know. Next person is Ferrum. Yep. All right, Ferrum, go ahead. You're unmuted.
All right. Destiny, what's your opinion on people who criticize race/gender swapping within media, and do you think it can ever be a valid criticism?
On
Thank you.
Race or gender swapping? Wait, what? Or I'm sorry, wait, could you clarify that?
Race and gender swapping, you know, like adding like females to like Battlefield 5 and stuff like that, and Ghostbusters and stuff.
So I guess, so a quick side story. I used to be, a long time ago, I say a long time ago, if you look at my shit from like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I was pretty much like the edgy gamer bro libertarian. I would argue that you should be able to use like bad words and everything, and none of that should matter or whatever. One of the big points that I would argue is I would always say that, like, I don't know if it matters if women and black people are represented in media, because I don't know if it should matter if the person looks like you in order for you to identify with them. Now, I always said that because I personally actually believe that. I really do. I don't care if I'm like watching, media and there's like a Korean or a woman or whatever. It just doesn't bother me. Personally, I just really don't care. I don't like strongly identify as a white man. Like, being male is not super important to me. Being white is not super important to me. I really don't care. Now, when I made those arguments, a ton of people agreed with me. A ton of white people agreed with me, and we're very happy that I made these, and all the gamer bros are on my side. But what I started to realize over the years is that people only agreed with me because I was enforcing the status quo or supporting the status quo. And now when I'm seeing like the Black Panther movie, or when I see like Battlefield 5, when I'm seeing women and minority figures being added to video games, a lot of white people get really fucking mad. And I'm still of the same position where it's like, I don't really care. Like, if there's a woman character, it doesn't bother me. If it's a black character, it doesn't bother me. But seeing how upset white men get when things are added to games and whatnot, like, kind of gives me pause to think, like, okay, so apparently this is a big issue for you. And if it is such a big issue for you to not have white men as the main characters, well, maybe you should use that to see how big of an issue it's been for people that have never had main characters that looked like them, you know? So in general, like, I'm in favor of having more diversity in characters, just because I think it gives more people in society something to aspire towards or look towards. Whether or not people are ever honest with themselves and admit that that is a reason why people are inspired to do certain things. Yeah, I think that there's some value there to have a greater diversity in casting for video games and movies or whatever.
All right. Pretty sure you've basically answered this, this whole questioning. But I guess in one cohesive statement, before he wants to know, what about the far right annoys you the most?
It's the dishonesty and the fallacious arguments. It's just what bothers me. Like, I like people like and I say this with a grain of salt, like Richard Spencer. I've never seen Richard Spencer engage in dishonest bullshit. It's possible that he does, and I just haven't seen it. But like, I would take somebody like Richard Spencer a million times over somebody like fucking Dave Rubin or fucking Sargon of Akkad or fucking Roaming Millennial. These people are idiots. They're dishonest, and they oftentimes are doing these bait and switches on things that they're trying to argue. They're not even being fucking honest about what they actually believe, and they're oftentimes too stupid to interpret the own data or studies that they cite, and that bothers me. Whereas somebody like somebody like Richard Spencer, this is a guy that I think has his moral platform pretty well thought out, and it seems like he's got his facts and figures that support whatever he's believes. So I can go and I can debate him on philosophy. I can debate him on his philosophy, or I could debate him on the facts and figures that he presents, and we can have that discussion. So yeah, the dishonesty and the inability to like parse data is the thing that fucks my mind the most about people on the right in general, or people in general, I should say. People on the left do this as well, although I would say on the right it's worse at the moment. And then just to tail that, to be very careful, it is possible that Richard Spencer does engage in dishonesty, and I just haven't seen it yet. I don't watch a fuck ton of his stuff. It just seems like when I listen to him talk, it seems like he's pretty forthcoming about his beliefs. But yeah.
Okay, sure. This one's kind of for me. In regards to your veganism argument, given that a lot of your justifications for meat eating are somewhat sociopathic, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's moral for you to allow your kid to eat meat, since you would have to presume that these justifications apply to them as well? Do you think this problem exists for other extensions such as religion?
Yeah, it's all possible. I mean, I would argue that I probably want my kid to adopt my moral system because it's right. He's my kid, so you would probably pass on as much as you can to your own child because you believe that you're correct. Right? Having children is like the ultimate exercise in narcissism. You're basically creating a little clone of yourself. Insofar as like religion and shit goes, these are questions that I've had to wrestle with over the past year or two, where I have to think like, okay, well, I advocate for a certain position, but do I advocate for it because it's truly beneficial to everybody, or is it just something that works for me because like I might be like a little bit more sociopathic than the average person? And I don't know. These are very hard questions to answer. I usually just try to go by, like what does empirical data state, or what seems reasonable from, even seems reasonable gets scary. I don't know. I have to spend a lot of. I guess I'd have to go through like specific points. I have to spend a lot of time thinking specifically about different things before I talk about them. I guess so. Like one specific example for me personally, I don't have very many friends. Just because I don't. I like to do everything on my own. Typically, I've sworn off relationships. I don't have many close friends. I don't usually bounce ideas off of people. I just like to do my own thing, and I think that's greatly benefited me. But I wouldn't advocate that for everybody because I think that most people in general, humans, tend to be happier when they are surrounded by friends, when they've got social circles that they participate in. And I think that's something that's borne out, empirically in like psych research and whatnot. That people with more friends that communicate and hang out with friends are typically happier than people that are more secluded. So it would be irresponsible for me to advocate for my personal position there publicly because most people wouldn't be happy doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question comes from Sunshine. Go ahead, Sunshine.
On the topic of your son, do you think you'd be ever interested in getting him into politics? And if so, at what age? And how would you, make sure that you're not biased? Or would you full-blown, just teach him all of the things that you believe to be true?
So, like, my big thing, this is going to sound super fucking tip-tippy fedora. Like, my big thing is critical thinking, and I don't even... It sounds really dumb to say, and everybody on the right disagrees with me, but I don't even personally consider myself to be, like, hardcore political. When I got into doing online debates, I was just curious, like, what are the correct arguments? And then you kind of follow it from there. Like, what arguments are the most right and the most true? And, through following that, for the most part, I've wound up pretty left-leaning, although I would argue that anybody that identifies as right-leaning in the United States is beyond fucking stupid because there are so many untenable positions of right-leaning people at the moment. So I guess, like, in talking to my kid, I would just hope to, I would never teach him, like, welfare and taxation is positive. I would more teach him, like, okay, well, how do we critically analyze ideas and, what idea do you think is the best for whatever purpose you're trying to achieve? I would hope to pass off, like, the thought process to him more than the results that I get from thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
That's kind of a bit. Okay, yeah. Normal Man wants to ask another question. Let me just go over here and unmute him. All right, Normal Man, go ahead. Second question.
What question do you want to ask? I've got a few.
Any of them. Would you want to ask maybe the fact that countries such as Algeria, Albania have greater female representation in STEM? That's a good one.
Yeah, there was a study done, and it turns out sort of Islamic countries tend to have greater representation of females than your so-called feminist states, which really heavily push these female representation, what would you call them, programs onto people. Like, why do you think that is, and should we continue to do that?
Wait, so what exactly is the question? Is should we push women towards STEM fields, or?
So why do you think that like countries that are economically and socially worse than others have more women in STEM field, right? Like, what do you think would be like the variables towards this? And do you think this is something we should actively change?
Oh man, I'm not comfortable with the premise because one, I'm not sure if that's true. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I don't know about that. And then because I don't know about it, I don't know the reasons why. So it's really hard for me to comment. Like, should we be more like Al Jazeera or I'm sorry, what did you say? Which countries? Not Al Jazeera.
Algeria, Tunisia, and Albania are the ones from the top of my head.
Okay, Tunisia, Albania, and I just don't know anything about those countries, so I don't know why. I don't know. I can't really comment. I mean, in terms of like the West, I mean, I would argue that you just try to remove as many barriers as possible for people to participate in certain activities, and that hopefully, I mean, measuring this is going to be really fucking hard from like a social psych point of view. You know, like how do you know that all the barriers have been removed? But I mean, like in some fields, we're probably approaching, you know, better representation. In other fields, it's still more.
External barriers stopping them from doing. Do you still think this is something that needs to change? Like, if they're happy going into like gender studies disproportionately than like a STEM field, do you think this is something that needs to be addressed?
So I guess I would argue that the best society is probably the one in which the people can make the freest choices possible, and I say that as kind of a determinist, as weird as that is. But I guess let me give an example, okay? Somebody will often say, "Are you not are you racist for not wanting to date black people?" And this is something that I think that you can analyze this in a way where the answer could be yes or no. So if somebody says like, "Would you ever want to date a black person?" and your answer is, "Well, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm more attracted to brunettes or whatever, so I'm not particularly into the way that black people look, I guess. But maybe if I met the right one, I don't know, maybe like that answer is probably fine. But if somebody's like, "Would you ever date a black person?" You're like, "Oh no, I would never date a black person," and like that's it, then it seems like that's probably, now not always, but that's probably indicative of some sort of negative internal, maybe racist thought that you have. Either you've only seen black people that you don't want to date, or you're only seeing like a certain kind of black person in the media, and it leads you to believe that all black people are like that. These are probably not good thoughts. So in this case, we've got two people that think the same end result, right? Neither one wants to date black people, but the way that they got there, I think, is really important. So when you ask me, if some women go into being housewives or whatever because socially they were encouraged to do so, is that really worse than them being socially encouraged to do something else? I would argue that you want to remove as many barriers as possible, so that if somebody wants to be a housewife, what they're thinking is like, I could do engineering, I could do math, I could do science, but I really like staying at home and watching kids, and that's like my passion or whatever, that's fine. But if they got there thinking, I'm probably going to stay home and be a housewife because I just don't think women are really meant to do much else. I don't think women are really meant to do science. I would argue that that's probably not a good thing, because we might lose a lot of like talent and good ideas and whatnot in those fields that could exist otherwise.
Sure, that would apply to a bunch of stuff, right? Including like sexuality, right? Because you've mentioned how you think people saying "I'm straight" or "I'm gay" is a very stupid statement, and that you're disqualifying an entire group, right, based off of some arbitrary category, right? So would you say something like that also needs to be changed? So if someone identifies as straight, right, do you think that is because there's a barrier that stops them from like ever finding a guy attractive or a female attractive of same sex?
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was, why I didn't want to go too deep on that, the LGBT or the transgender question earlier. I think that a lot of like group theory in terms of like how we identify as like being straight, being gay, that these labels are a little bit silly. I don't know if there's much value to be gained there. I consider myself like maybe bisexual, but I mean, I've only ever really been interested in dating women. But I mean, like if I met the right guy, maybe I would consider it. I'm not particularly into guys though. I don't think I could ever do it. But I don't think I would ever like rigidly define myself as like, I am straight. Like, because I don't know, who's to say that in the future that maybe I don't meet the right guy and it's like, oh fuck it, like I could date this dude, why not? I think that locking yourself into these groups, I don't see it giving you any possible benefit, and it could only give you negatives, I guess is how I see it,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. This question comes from Gatori, and he wants me to ask this on his behalf. He says, what's your opinion on governments removing key parts of history, for example, the British and French governments burning political files from their former colonies?
Wait, why are they burning political files?
he didn't cite a reason. He just says that they tried to remove this essential part of their history, right? For whatever reason, right? I'm assuming the reason is very important to your answer to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if they like burned them because they're redundant and they filed them electronically, then it doesn't matter. I mean, I would argue.
Sure, I'm assuming it's because they didn't want people to see that, but it's just something they wanted to raise.
Well, like, is it well, I mean, like, are they like top secret? Okay, so I'll answer in the way that I think he wants me to answer. I don't think that we should ever censor or delete our history without having a good reason to do so. I mean, obviously, if the files were redundant or if they were like top secret or could cause damage or whatever, like government damage if they got out, then that would be bad. But, yeah.
Okay, sure.
Britain destroyed records of colonial crimes. Review finds thousands of papers detailing shameful acts were cold while others were kept secret illegally. Oh, yeah, it sounds like they were just trying to cover their shit up. Then, I mean, obviously, I would argue that's probably not a good thing. Or that's definitely not a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Xenomorph says, what's your view on underage pregnancies, and do you think it's a good example for this generation?
What's your view on what?
Kind of a broad question. On underage pregnancies.
I mean, empirically, they're almost always bad. Underage pregnancy probably carries with it more health risks, depending on how young the person is. If you're talking like 13, 14, 15 pregnant, you're probably a lot more likely to wind up in complications. Socially, you're probably going to be a lot more fucked. You're going to be having to take care of a kid from a very early age. You're probably not going to be as happy. You're not going to be hanging out with friends as much. Your family's probably going to be resentful. Economically, it's going to be bad because the state's probably going to have to step in and take care of your child for you. You're probably going to be on some kind of welfare. Educationally, it's bad because you're probably going to have to put off getting education. I don't know. There's like a million different bad things about young pregnancy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Board Pants has another question, and he wants to ask this question. Go ahead. This is referring to your two-party system question, Board Pants.
Do you think it's possible for America to change the two-party system?
No, you have to change the voting system first. The two-party system is a result of the voting system. The two-party system is not the problem. It's first past the post. Let's say there's 100 people voting, and there's 50 people that want to vote for the Kill All Tigers party, and there's 50 people that want to vote for the Save All Tigers party. Let's say that the people that save all the tigers, or I'm sorry, actually, let's say 40 people want to vote Kill All the Tigers, 60 people want to vote Save All the Tigers. Well, let's say that of the 60 people that want to save all the tigers, let's say some people are like, well, hold on, actually, we could save the tigers even better. We're going to make a second party to do it. So now you've got two Save All the Tigers party. Let's say that vote splits and then 30 go to one and 30 go to the other. Well, now you've just given the vote to the people that want to kill the tigers. So even though the population as a total wants whatever that third party branched off to vote for, now the minority ended up winning because third parties only fuck you. In a first past the post system, from what I'm aware of, I haven't heard a contradiction of this, it seems like third parties literally only exist to destroy themselves. Like, if you ever make a third party, you are hurting whatever issue it is you are advocating for, because you're only going to pull voters away from another party that would have already supported those issues. So, for instance, like the Green Party existing in the U.S., there is no fucking Republican that's going to switch to the Green Party. It's only going to be Democrats that are going to switch to the Green Party. And Democrats are going to be better for the environment than Republicans are anyway, because Republicans don't believe in global warming, and they don't like shit like cap and trade or anything like that anyway. And then same thing with like the Libertarian Party. No Democrat is going to switch to the fucking Libertarian Party, but Republicans will switch to the Libertarian Party because they support, in theory, smaller government and whatnot. So the Libertarian Party literally only hurts its own cause. Yeah, so it seems really bad. It seems like the first past the post system will always lead to like a two-party system, and you have to change that voting system or that voting structure to get rid of the two-party thing. But then, and then to clarify more, I know that like other voting systems, it can lead to parties like forming coalitions or different things like that can happen as well. But it just seems like in the United States, in the first past the post thing, our parties don't do that yet. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough. This question comes from me. Yeah. How would you describe the state of left-wing YouTube as it stands? Given that you were never interested in pushing an agenda, do you think YouTube should at all push for more left-wing content?
Wait, what was the last part of that question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So the second part was that do you think YouTube should do, if there's a scarcity, right, of left-wing content, right? Do you think YouTube should do anything about it, right? And I would ask you to factor in the fact that you don't care for pushing an agenda.
Yeah,
right?
so I mean, like, from a capitalist point of view, YouTube's goal is to just make money. That's why it's such a circle jerk, right? If you watch one video, the algorithm is going to suggest something similar because you've got a higher chance of staying and watching it, right? The viewer retention is higher. So I don't know if YouTube has an obligation to foster any type of political content. That's the second part of the question. So I would be, I guess, agnostic towards that. I don't know if they have an obligation to do that. I'd be uncomfortable saddling them. I mean, you could argue they have a moral obligation to do it, and I would agree with that you should try your best to maybe represent more factual points of view on your platform. I mean, I think that's a good moral argument to make. I don't think I would enforce it at the state level, though. I'd be uncomfortable with that. To the first part of the question, the state of leftist YouTube. I think that YouTubers like ContraPoints and Sean and Jen and H-Bomber Guy, I think have shown that there is kind of a desire to have these more vocal left-leaning people on YouTube, and I think that they're finally starting to get more popular, which I would argue is an overwhelmingly positive thing. So hopefully that trend continues.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, Socrates wants to ask another question, so I'll just be unmuting him. It seems that he's not here. Okay, sure. So I'll just ask another question. Wait, are you here?
Yeah,
no,
right.
no, you are. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. You changed your name from Sock, so go ahead.
So I'm the Federalist guy from before, right? And at one point you expressed that you were anti-abortion. So what's your current position now, and how have your views changed, such as regarding like a fetus's life in comparison to a woman's right to body autonomy?
I don't like to dig into this too much because this becomes like super heavy philosophy, but like basically I don't think there's a clear distinction between a fetus and a human. I don't think you can draw that line where you could ever convince me this is non-human and then at this point it becomes human. So it seems like if you're a human from the moment of being a zygote, I generally regard murder to be morally wrong. So I mean we're like murder is by definition unprovoked or unjustified. So like I would argue that like you're essentially murdering something when you have an abortion. That's my personal moral view on it. I mean pragmatically you can never make abortion illegal because women will always get abortions anyway, like you whether back alley or through other drinking too much or other means. So I don't think it's something that you could realistically enforce, and if you can't enforce a law, it's a garbage law. So yeah, I mean I'm in favor of abortion remaining legal for a variety of reasons, if for no other reason because I don't know if I can necessarily force my morality on other people. I guess my goal is to reduce abortions in other ways. So availability of contraception is really important. Sex education from an early age is really important. Stuff like that I think are good ways to reduce abortion rates, which would be what I would want to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Actual Communist Boy wants to ask a question this time. Go ahead, Actual Communist Boy.
Sure. Just what are your thoughts on representative versus direct democracy? Could you see a direct democracy working?
The setup would have to be very complicated. I'm in general, I'm against a direct democracy because I mean it's the tyranny of the majority. The majority can always fuck the minority in a direct democracy. So like in the United States, if we had a direct democracy, every single law we make would, be heavily swayed towards the Californian side. If we didn't have a Senate with 2 representatives from every state or 2 senators from every state, I mean like the middle states would have no sway whatsoever, no pull whatsoever in our government. In a direct democracy, minority figures would get fucked really hard if we didn't have like a check on that, like via the Supreme Court or something. I mean, you could have a direct democracy and still have like the Supreme Court. I guess it would just depend on the implementation of said direct democracy, huh? But if you start like adding like representatives and too many checks, I guess it's not really direct democracy anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. If you want to like clarify more on what you mean by direct democracy, maybe I can give more thoughts. And then just to preface, like I don't know like a fuck ton of political theory. Like any random poli-sci major who's like 3rd year can probably give you better answers to this than I can. But go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. I guess mostly I was just wondering, like if you thought in the context of still having a constitution, still having a Supreme Court, and so on, whether maybe we could do direct elections of leaders of federal offices or direct elections of various positions in the federal government, or just vote on referenda for national issues in general.
Yeah, like referendum, I would argue is really bad. These pull in a couple different ways. Like referendum is bad. So in the United States, we try to give each of the states like some sway via our congressional system, right? Like via the Senate. The idea that like people in California would be making decisions for the entire country makes me uncomfortable. And like Florida and Texas, like these high population states would have a massively disproportionate pull against all the other states, which I'm not a big fan of. I also think that people in general are really fucking stupid. I think that like the average person is really dumb. I sound really narcissistic. I'm sorry that. So like I think that like in the UK, like the Brexit shit that should have never been left up to referendum. This is a fucking disaster. So I would be referendums are real fucking scary to me because I don't know which way, whatever the fucking way the wind blows, like people can make really dumb fucking decisions at any given point in time and leaving shit. Fucking post 9/11, we probably could have held a referendum to nuke Iraq, and we probably would have voted yes on it. So things like referendums make me really scary. I think that and I've heard this argument put out by political scientists before that the slowness of the government is kind of built into it, that we want it to be a little bit slow acting because it gives people time to think about things and you know, it gives you a little bit more time to figure out if an action is good or bad, and that crazy actions can't go through immediately because there's a little bit more, it's just a little slower to get through the government system.
Fair enough.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for your question. Extra comments, bud?
Of course.
Okay, so I'll be asking this one on Adrian's behalf. What is your what is your main goal for your current political commentary, and do you think you're achieving it? Right. So, since you've moved on from debating like crazy extreme right figures, I'm assuming is what is that.
My goal, my stated goal in the beginning, and has remained my consistent goal throughout until now, is my goal is that I want to find the most true arguments, and I want to argue in favor of those most true arguments. That's always been my goal. Some people assume that I do like political advocacy, or that I'm trying to convince the most amount of people possible to join my camp. That's not my goal. My goal is really just I want to know what the most true arguments are, and those are what I want to argue in favor of in the best way possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Deeps here to ask a very artistic question. Go ahead, Deeps.
What is your definition of art?
Of Oz?
A-R-T?
Art.
A-R-T.
You know that art thing?
Wait, no, am I missing a meme? Wait, A-R-T-S?
Art.
Oh, art. Oh, I thought you were saying like abbreviation. Yeah. I don't know.
No.
There's like, I mean, you can never define art, right? That's like the whole point of art. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, like, I think we've evolved to the point in art where, like, there's always been, like, a counter movement to challenge, whatever it is we believe art is, right? That's the whole point of, like, modern art and shit, is to challenge your preconceived notions of what art is. Anytime, if I try to give you a definition of, like, so my background is in music, right? If I would try to give you a concrete answer for this is music, then you could give me a piece that would challenge that, and I could never argue why something is or isn't music. It would be really difficult to do that. And any definition I give, you could find me things that I agree are music that don't fit the definition, or you could find things that do fit the definition and aren't. Like, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I would never define art. I don't think you can do it. We just kind of have like broad general notions of what art is. Mm-hmm.
Haven't you previously said that Death Grips is not considered music or art?
That was from a subjective personal point of view. That was not giving like an objective definition. I don't like people that go crazy avant-garde or that do crazy experimental shit without having a solid foundation in what it is they are critiquing. That's just like a personal point of view I have. But I would never like come out and say like objectively like X is not music, like Death Grips is not music. Like generally when I'm talking, and I'm very careful to do this, especially because I have a background in music, generally when I'm talking about like I really don't like this or I don't consider this thing, I usually say like this is my subjective opinion on this. Obviously people are entitled to their own opinions on this.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for the question, Jeeps. Okay, next question comes from Eugenio from Brazil, and it's a long one. Why does the alt-right always seem to dominate anonymous and barely moderate chat spaces, and how can we combat this? Also, what is the best way to counter the misinformation spread the likes of Kotaku, In Action, and Poll? Thanks.
The alt-right is like really vicious in terms of like how they'll target and go after people. So I've been witch hunted by both sides in my career. Early on when I was more right-leaning and the left-leaning SJWs, I guess you would say, were witch hunting me. Typically they would go after my sponsorships and stuff, and that's where it would stop. But the right-leaning people will go after like my family, like have tried to call the FBI on me and shit like that. Stuff that left-leaning people would never do. So I think that right-leaning people, and again, this goes back to like left-leaning people have like some form of moral standards, and right-leaning people will abandon all of those moral standards if it means like political efficacy. So I think that in the internet world, the more vicious you're willing to be, the higher the chance you have of coming out on top. And people on the right are no holds barred. They'll go as hard as they fucking need to in order to win whatever argument they need to. So yeah, I think that might be why the right dominates online conversations more so than the left, because a lot of people on the left are like, fuck it, I can't do this. And even I had to say that, and I'm like, again, sounding narcissistic, I'm one of the most tenacious people I know, so if I have to take a step back, I can't honestly advocate for anybody else to do it. Like, it's really difficult to do. That was the first part, and then the second part is about like how to win against like otaku in action and shit. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
no.
know
How do you stop them? How do you stop the misinformation of like Paul? And
I don't know.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know of how like Paul like consistent and vehemently misrepresents like your videos and like your views and whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like a cesspool of like right wing.
Yeah, it's insane. Like I had somebody respond to one of my comments and like, oh wait, this is Destiny. Isn't he the guy that like rapes his daughter and argues in favor of like child porn? And it's like, what the fuck? Like I notice this, that when I go into online communities and I try to argue, I have to spend like an hour dispelling literal fucking fan fiction about my life, about how like I raped people or how I tried to one of the most recent rumors that I've seen circulating is that at one point in time I tried to get my ex-girlfriend's 16-year-old friend to have a threesome with us, which is like the dumbest shit I've ever read. So like, I don't know. It's really, really difficult. I don't know how you combat that level of misinformation when half the time, or like, there's a million different memes. Like how many times, I don't know if you ever heard people talking about, like how many times have you heard people say things like, oh, Destiny, he wanted to carpet bomb Mexico, right? That was like ripped horrendously out of context from a conversation that I had with Mr. Medicare about foreign policy. I don't know how you combat people like this. I'm not sure, dude. With a bullet? I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I'm just kidding. I really don't know. It's very fucking frustrating for me to deal with people that I perceive as living in different realities that I can't communicate with them. It's like I have to cross like a dimensional barrier, and I don't know. It fucks my mind. I don't know.
Oh, so would you take the same like views as like banning drugs? So let's say if like Paul takes some like abrasive approach to the extreme right wing people, right? They'll just find another place to like fester in and whatever, right? Like is that like nothing can be done? Is what you're saying?
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. I really do. If I had like the silver bullet answer, my whole rhetoric would shift, and I would probably try to engage in that type of behavior. I'd be interested in doing that, but I don't know the answer. How do you make fucking idiots that live in different realities not live in different realities? I don't know what the answer to that is.
Sure. Speaking of Paul Monkey is next with a question for Destiny. Here you go. You're unmuted, Paul. Go ahead.
Yep. So is there actual racism and sexism against cis white men? Now, I want to also make it very clear, though, pointing out someone has prejudice isn't really necessarily racism, but rather this question sort of stems from now the fact that people are saying, oh, it's just like impossible for me to be racist because I'm X, fill in the blank, and then that ends up allowing people to excuse some very vile behavior in words.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it kind of comes down to what level we want to analyze this at. So on, like, a personal level, is it possible for, like, black people or Chinese people or whatever to be racist? I mean, yeah, of course. If we go by contemporary definitions, like, a black person can say, like, fuck you, you're white or whatever. Like, it's obviously possible for any person to be racist, and it's possible for any person to experience racism. If you're a white person and somebody says something mean to you online and it hurts your feelings, and your feelings are probably going to get hurt because you're white and you're a delicate snowflake, then, of course, yeah. I mean, it's possible that anybody could perceive themselves as being racially attacked, right? I kind of did it right there. Now, if you were to ask me, like, do white people experience racism on a similar level as, like, other minorities in the United States, the answer is absolutely fucking not.
I agree with
and that's
that.
why,
it's absolutely not there.
When people like Dave Rubin or other disingenuous fucking idiots, my favorite example of all time, from one of the guys that I hate the most that have ever existed, one of the most dumb fucking pieces of shit that I've ever known, is when Dave Rubin was talking about the NFL thing, and Dave Rubin was making this comment where he's like, I don't know why these NFL players have to kneel during games. Can't I just have one Sunday, 1 3-hour block where I can watch a game without somebody inserting politics into it? When I heard him say
I watched that.
Yeah, and it's like, how great would it be if you could just spend one day as a black person without dealing with any of the dumb bullshit you might have to deal in the United States because of being black? Like, that was the ultimate example of white privilege. When you're literally saying that, like, the disadvantages that groups of people face in the U.S. is just a political issue to you, like, how advantaged must you be? How mind-numbingly fucking stupid do you have to be to make a statement so totally fucking tone deaf? Yeah, typically when white people talk about experiencing racism, you're always going to hear them say things like, well, you say that white people can experience racism. Well, what about on Tumblr where they've got #white genocide? It's like, dude, come on. Like, that's your goal. I mean, like, yeah, I guess it sucks people are mean to you online, but, like, that's what you experience as a white person? Like, is people saying mean things to you on Twitter and Tumblr? Like, that's what you've got? Like, come on, dude.
Do you think this can actually get out of hand, though, later on?
Oh yeah, it's possible it could. I mean, we're really far from it, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that could. I mean, like, one of the things that I argue that left-leaning people have a really hard time understanding is that on the left, we like to look at things as classes, and then on the right, we like to look at things as individuals. Well, analyzing things as classes is really good from a data point of view, like how do black people respond to X? How do poor people respond to Y? How do people in this geographic region respond to Z, right? These are good questions from a class point of view, but you have to remember that at the end of the day, individuals are the ones that interpret things. So if I, and this is a problem that left-leaning people have a lot, if I try to say to you, like, you've never experienced racism before, okay, well, maybe as a class, white people haven't, but an individual certainly could. And if you're telling that individual that they haven't experienced something because their class doesn't do it, that individual is never going to understand what you're saying to them. And I think that's an important thing to understand sometimes.
All right, thanks, bro.
All classical liberals. Okay. Just wants me to ask this question on his behalf. What are your thoughts on the following statement? Secular states should remain completely secular without religious influences, freedoms, or affiliations. Theocratic or theonomous states should operate and rule rightly under God's laws without secular influence, freedom, or affiliations. Right, just like to either end of the spectrum, either like a completely theocratic system or a completely secular system. Like there shouldn't be an in-between, as I'm assuming what he means.
I don't know if that would, pragmatically, I don't know if that would work. I guess from a philosophical point of view, he's saying that secular states should have no religious people in them.
Yeah, so say they ought to be, remain as like secular as possible and have as little religious influence as possible. And I'm assuming this also includes like the people, not just in like law. The way he's phrased this question.
I guess I'm not really. I don't think I have a good answer to that. And like, you're asking me like how a country ought operate like politically. I don't know if I could give like. I mean, like I would argue that I don't like religion at all. But I mean, like that's not really answering the question. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I can really answer that question. Sorry.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. Okay. Next person is Fool, and he wants to ask this question himself. Go ahead, Fool. Yeah.
All right. So, do you believe global research on political and or economical systems would be beneficial to society?
Global research on political or economic systems?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I think all research is good, right? It gives us a greater understanding of how politics and economics works, and maybe we can implement some of those findings locally, sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, easy enough. Okay. Next person. Okay, sure. Normal Man wants to go ahead. Let me see if he's...
Here, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
What one do you want me to ask? I have a few unpinned.
Any question that you see fit. So, how about this one?
Okay.
Does the alt-right have any
yeah. Does the alt-right have any valid points? If you do think they have any valid points, then I wonder, what are they?
I mean, I'm sure normatively, so, okay, so to separate, you've got descriptive claims, which are claims of fact, and then normative claims, which are philosophical claims of how we ought to act. Normatively, I would disagree with almost everything that an ethno-state person says. Descriptively, I mean, I'm sure they make some accurate observations. I think that people probably are tribalistic by nature. That's something that has to be overcome societally or cognitively, but intuitively or natively, we probably want to be next to people that look like us. So, I mean, like, that's something that's probably true. I'm sure there are other like descriptive claims that like an alt-righter makes that I would probably agree with. I'd have to be more. I guess you could argue like there are a lot of Jewish people that are very powerful in the United States and probably in the West in general. That descriptive claim is probably true. But I mean, I reject almost their entire normative platform. I don't like philosophically agree with them anything like how ought we act. Like, do we need to excise all the Jews? Are the Jews really trying to destroy Western culture because by multiculturalism? Like, I don't buy into these claims at all.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Okay. So, Fizzy has a question for you. Fizzy, go ahead. Unless you'd like
this
me
is
to
a
ask
bit of a follow-up for what I asked before about do you think we have a duty to act when NGOs can't handle a human rights problem, such as a brutal dictatorship or a genocide? What domestic affair could be so consuming that it deprives us of the capability or the responsibility to stop the most horrid violations of human rights?
So this really isn't. So this question is not actually even like a question you have to answer. I guess like you really have to go like more fundamental. And you have to say like, what is the purpose of your state on an international level? Like we would have to discuss this, and then once we get the answer there, then the next answer is almost self-evident. So if you were to tell me that like as a country we have an obligation to help people around the world if they are going through, I guess whatever our definition of like an extremely unjust act is, if that is your definition of the state or any moral state, then the answer to your question, of course, becomes, yeah, sure, we should definitely try to intervene in international affairs if NGOs aren't capable of addressing situations that are going on. I think that
Is that your position?
In a perfect world, my argument would be absolutely yes. But as we exist right now, we are just so not fucking capable of doing it. We absolutely do not fucking care about anything that happens in Africa or anything that happens in South America. We just totally do not give a fuck about it. And even in the Middle East to a large extent. And even in Southeast Asia. I mean, we really don't care about anything that's like not outside whatever's on the fucking news at the time. We really don't give a fuck about it. So like, even if we were the type of state that would intervene, we would literally only do it in places like, I mean, like we pretended that we invaded Iraq to get rid of, or sorry, go ahead.
We have intervened, like, successfully many times to protect democracy.
Whoa, hold on. Are we talking about protecting democracy against communism, or are we talking about, like, things like Darfur and shit?
Tyranny, like, not even communism.
Can you give me, so in your mind, would you argue that things like the Vietnam War or things like the Korean War were successful interventions?
I mean, you picked two that were particularly unsuccessful.
Or I'm sorry. Let me redefine. When I say successful, I mean like those were righteous interventions.
Democracy, where we ousted a dictator without bloodshed.
Okay,
with
so
the full backing of the United Nations.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. So I misunderstood your question a little bit. I thought you were talking about, or maybe you can tell me if I'm mischaracterizing you. I thought that you meant like in cases where people are like literally genociding groups of people or enslaving and massively sex trading or whatever groups of people. In these cases,
I am talking about situations like that as well.
So in those situations, I would definitely argue that we should intervene. However, in situations where it's just like a non-democratic government, I don't know morally if from a macro level, if we have a right to impose our form of government on another country. That makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know if we have the right to do that. If say that there's like a revolution in some country and a dictator takes over, do we have a right to step in and depose that dictator? I am I would be hyper skeptical that the U.S. would ever do that unless the new leader supported us. What?
Did.
Wait,
in
like
Haiti, 1995.
So I'm not familiar with this, but did we actually go and overthrow a government to help the people, or did we install a new person that was loyal to the United States interests? Because it's generally what we do when we go.
A coup overthrew a democracy in Haiti. And United Nations Security Council Resolution 940 authorized the United States to oust the dictator. And after presenting an ultimatum telling him that we're about to invade, that we had no trouble invading Grenada or Panama, the dictator stepped down and democracy was restored.
Sure. So I'm very uncomfortable talking about this just because I don't know a lot about it. So it's possible that you know more than me. But yeah, no, that's okay. But I just like really quickly, like looking up United Nations Security Council Resolution 940. The literal first paragraph is the council began with condemnations of the military regime in Haiti because it refused to cooperate with the United States. So like, was this? This is the problem that I have when it comes to intervention, like on foreign soil, is I don't think it's moral for the United States to intervene in another country when we're really only doing so to serve our own interests at the possible expense of other people, which is like what we've done in Iran or in a lot of the Middle East, with Saddam Hussein and what's going on right now in Syria. That stuff makes me uncomfortable. And I don't know.
I think a lot of times we do have humanitarian intentions.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think that's something worth looking into.
Sure. Yeah, I would. I would argue that almost nothing that goes on in the Middle East, I would say, has almost nothing to do with humanitarian issues, though.
What about Operation Desert Storm? We
Definitely
stopped
not
an imperial conquest on the part of Saddam Hussein.
All right, we're gonna. I don't want to veer off into this. We have to move on to the questions. Sorry, Fizzy. You can take it off. Continue this when we're done with the other ones.
Sure, and just to be clear on the well, because I don't want to cut the guy out completely. One of the big reasons why we went against Saddam was because he was literally gassing Kurdish people, right? That was a big part of us going in there, right? Was chemical warfare against the Kurdish people, the Peshmerga. Did that other guy get muted? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I unmuted him. Go ahead.
And then I think he attacked Kuwait as well. Yeah. I mean, like, I would argue that in those cases, yeah, that's something that we should definitely stop. But I mean, we left Saddam Hussein in power after that, right? Because he agreed to work with us and was kind of sort of loyal to the United States after. Isn't that one of the reasons why we kind of left him there?
We were kind of tied up by the situation in Eastern Europe at the time, what with the Soviet Union collapsing.
Okay.
So
maybe I would have to look more into the specific politics of the region then at that particular time for why did we leave Saddam Hussein there if the invasion of Kuwait was such a horrible thing? Why didn't we depose him as a leader there?
Because we didn't want to get tied down there.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Sure. So just Noble wants me to ask this question on his behalf, and he says, "What's your stance on the over-integration of political correctness in our modern societies?" Kind of a loaded question because it assumes we're being overloaded by political. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to see. Oftentimes, when people say political correct, what they're really just saying is, "I really want to say the N-word." So I have to look into. I haven't seen like a lot of things that are like too politically correct, where I'm like, this is just so dumb. Yeah, I would need. Is that guy here? Does he have specific examples or?
Yeah, but he's not VCing, like he's not willing to talk. So
what's his name in chat? Who is it?
Noble.
Oh, is he typing it on? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll just move on. Slimy wants me to ask a question on his behalf as well. Thoughts on Trump's imposition of tariffs on the EU, Mexican, and Canadian imports?
I hate tariffs. I think they're really bad. I'm a pretty hardcore capitalist free market kind of guy, except when government intervention is necessary. So
How
obviously,
immoral?
What?
How immoral?
Oh no, I'm not even making statements of morality or judgments of morality. I just think from an economic point of view, I just think tariffs are just really bad. I'm very anti-protectionism. I don't think that's a good economic policy at all, and I think most economists agree with that.
Okay, sure. Next person's been waiting a while, so I'm gonna be unmuting Swindle to ask you a question.
So, can I answer something real quick from Amir that just typed in chat? There are a lot of things that have the appearance of being PC that are oftentimes just kind of like misunderstandings. So he said in chat, a good example of politically correct is saying African American to a Haitian or avoiding the word black. So calling a Haitian African American is something that you shouldn't do. And I don't know if there are actual people on the left that advocate for doing this, that say that like you should call every single black person African American. I think that I don't know the history of Haiti to know 100%, so I can't speak to that. But I would know, like, for an African person, like, you would never call, like, somebody from Sudan, like, African American or whatever. The reason why the term African American exists is because it's kind of an all-encompassing term for the black history in the United States. One thing that we don't really think about as white people is that as white people, oftentimes we can celebrate our heritage. You know, like, oh, I'm part Irish. Oh, I'm part Scottish. Oh, I'm part German. You know, this is where my family came from, blah, blah, blah. White people can talk for hours and hours about their history, and they've got, like, all their little books of this is where my family came over and blah, blah, blah. Black people don't really have that. When they were brought over from Africa, you know, they oftentimes don't have any idea where the fuck their ancestors were from. They were all kind of mixed together and they were thrown into the US, and they don't get that same kind of ancestry that white people do. This is where the term African American comes from, and it's one of the reasons why African American is used to describe people in the US. I don't think it's necessarily like a PC term. I think that it does have a pretty specific meaning, and I think that the idea behind that meaning is pretty important to kind of understand that the black historical experience in the US is a little bit different than a white person's or a Chinese person's or anything else. Yeah. Sorry, okay.
Yeah. Wendell, you've been waiting a while. Sorry for that. Go ahead.
All good. I just want to ask, earlier you said that you're a materialist. I want to ask what it means, to be a materialist, and like what you think material is. Like the concept from a philosophical point of view for what materialism is doesn't really make sense to me.
Wait, are you like a philosopher critiquing me, or are you just asking me to give you definitions?
Well, I want to know what it means for something to be material.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I might be I might be totally wrong on this. This is just with my little fucking Wikipediaing bullshit. So a materialist, I believe, is somebody that believes that everything that in our existence is composed of matter, and that is it. Everything has some material origin, as in it is composed of matter, and that's it. So in questions insofar as like what is human consciousness or the human experience or our mind, like there is no metaphysical, there is no supernatural, there is no magical properties or soul or anything like that. Everything can be traced back to some sort of material or matter origin. Would be so that would be like a materialist. I believe that's a materialist, right?
Yeah, that's fine. But I was more so wondering what it means to you to say that something is material.
There's no like supernatural or spiritual explanation or impact on anything. So you don't have a soul. There's probably no afterlife. There's no God, anything like that. There is no such thing as karma or any type of supernatural power or anything like that.
I mean, I guess that's an okay definition. It's just, to me, I don't even think that the notion of what spirit is well defined either. So,
well,
saying
spirit
that
is
that...
spirit itself might not be well defined, but it isn't material. I believe that most people would, like when I say most, like any honest person, if they're talking about a spirit, is talking about something that is very immaterial. They're talking about something supernatural or something that is greater or different than something that exists in our physical universe, right?
Yeah, I guess, but are you saying like, okay, if you were to take something that's not part of our universe, and then you were to take that person that's calling themselves like a spiritualist, and then if you were to ask them like, okay, if we were transferring over to that world, are those things no longer material? I'm not sure they would be able to directly answer that question with, yes, it's no longer material, because you're interfacing in a materialistic way.
Wait, can you say that again? What do you mean?
So like, because the way in which like material is used tends to be like used to relate to things that are also physical. So just saying like it's something in a different world, you could say that like if you were in that world interfacing with it or different universe, that since you're interacting in that other universe in a physical way, it's also material.
Sure,
this is just why I don't like these words. They don't seem to make much sense to me, like to make these weird distinctions between like material or spiritual things.
Well, the value is that, so like I'm just reading the first line off the Wikipedia. Materialism is a form of philosophical monoism which holds that matter is the fundamental substance of nature and that all things, including mental aspects and consciousness, are results of material interactions. So materialism is just like a counterpoint to people that believe in spirituality or karma, and I think there's value in that distinction. Right? That do you believe that your mind is something spiritual or something, that exists higher than our physical universe, or do you believe that everything in the mind is a result of biological processes? I think that these are two pretty distinct positions that are worth clarifying, no?
I think you can so I'm a dualist, so to me, I wouldn't say that the mind is the same thing as your consciousness, but at the same time...
Well, yeah, I'm not asking if you agree, but just that there's a value in making the distinction. So, like, if you're a dualist, then you believe that there are things that exist outside of the materialistic universe, right? You think that maybe the mind, that there are properties of the mind that can't be measured by a scientific instrument, right?
Sure, I just don't think that... I have a pretty bizarre way of even going about defining consciousness and like what it means for things to be like physical in the first place. So like asking me these questions doesn't really help, because to me, I think like the way in which most people approach this, especially someone that's like purely a materialist, that would say that all there is like the physical, and so that the brain is basically the same thing as your consciousness. Like I don't think you can really get down to like what it is to say that things are physical or material. Because you just get into these weird traps where you're just distinguishing material as identified as being distinguished from the like consciousness.
Okay.
Which isn't really an answer.
Sure, I guess if you feel that way, sure.
Thanks for the question, Wendell. Okay, someone wanted to ask a question. 1 second. Here you go. Someone, you're unmuted. Go ahead, buddy.
Hello?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I'm to understand that you said nay to abortion, right?
That I said what?
No to abortion, right?
From a moral
Against
point of
abortion.
view, but from a policy or pragmatic point of view, I think it necessarily must be legal. You can't make it illegal. It should be available.
Oh, okay, sure. But how exactly does that fit your moral axioms of whatever benefits me and stuff?
Well,
That doesn't seem to add up.
Well, I mean, in society, if you make abortion illegal, I think everybody just becomes worse off. Women will get it illegally. People will be upset as fuck about it. Like, it just doesn't end up working.
Okay, so you're just against it morally for today's society because of the reaction that there would be.
Yeah,
but you don't
and because it's not enforceable.
But you're not against it in principle.
Well,
right?
yeah,
So
I guess like
in an ideal society, you wouldn't be against it morally.
Yeah, in an ideal society, yeah, you'd have systems in place so that even if a kid was born to somebody that can't take care of it, there would be other ways to deal with it. Like deal with it in a non-killing it kind of
So
way.
you're still against it morally, even in a utopia where everyone is okay with it?
Oh wait, and in a utopia where everyone is okay with it. Well, I mean, my base moral principle wouldn't change there. In a utopia, I would still be against it because I think that from a moral point of view, unprovoked murder is wrong.
Yeah, well, that point. How? Why? Because your moral actions are in like whatever benefits me. It doesn't seem like it would touch you in any way.
Well, I guess
if it didn't have this societal consequence.
Sure, I guess at this point it wouldn't bother me, but like I guess it means that at one point in my life I could have been murdered as a kid, and that would bother me. Like I would have never wanted to have been terminated as a pregnancy, and so necessarily I have to argue in favor of I guess like pregnancies. Like I think that in general like unjust murder is wrong, and I would view that as murder. And if I say that murder is okay in this particular instance, I think it opens me up to saying that murder is okay in other particular instances that I'm not okay with.
Okay, but what about before sentience? Because then you wouldn't know. It wouldn't really make a difference.
I don't know if I necessarily believe in sentience or consciousness as an actual.
Well,
thing.
I know you believe it arises from material stuff. It doesn't really matter. It's there or it isn't there.
Sure. I mean, I don't grant it any like special property or anything. Like whether or not.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that you wouldn't really be there yet. Like it wouldn't make a difference to you. Because you can't, before you come into existence, care about your existence.
I mean, I guess so. I don't know. That position seems very strange to me because I would make the argument like a 1.5-year-old can't really care about its existence. Like, does it really know anything? Like.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, this goes down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it's okay. We'll like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you, someone. Okay. Next person who wants to ask this question is Ferrum Titan.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ferrum.
You hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to say firstly, just want to preface this. It's not really a question, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, like, maybe when I was 14, I was more like following the skeptic community, you know, like Sargon and Skeptic and those people. But then as I grew up, I leaned more towards Destiny. So that's just the preface. I guess what I want to say is, what do you think about entertaining some of these people's, some of the skeptics' thoughts, like specifically Sargon's determinism? And I just want to say, I'm not going to go ahead and say just get married. I'm not saying that, but I definitely want that politically. But on an individual basis, I feel like that's helpful. Speaking from my own experience, like because I grew up in London as a black male, and you know I did have some of the same problems that they would do in America, like gang riots and that stuff. And hearing that whole, you do have things stacked up against you. I understand that, and I'm cool. Like I agree with you. Like we should have the government step in and provide aid to these people to help them out to correct the wrongs. But on an individual level, I feel like it helped because knowing that I have these things against me, it helped me not make those mistakes and being aware of like the challenges that I was set up before I was even born. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is kind of like a really weird dichotomy that's going on here. I totally agree with you. So I guess like let me give an example. There might be reasons why my son in particular might fail in school. Like, well, this, you know, some percentage of people like this, or some percentage of people like that. But you would never say that to an individual. You're always going to tell an individual or advocate to an individual that you should try to rise above your circumstances, that you should try to do the best you can. You know, like I would never be invited to do this for a variety of reasons. But like, let's say that I'm invited to give like a speech to like a black community. I would never get on a thing and be like, okay, well, listen up, guys. You know, like 72% of you are going to do this, so make sure you sort yourself into the groups to figure out, you know, who's going to do what, and the 28% that are going to be okay. And also, you know, like 52% of you, like you would never say that. You would say like every single one of you should constantly be aspiring to rise above your circumstances and whatnot. There's a difference, though, between what you would like personally recommend people do or have people aspire towards, which is the greatest possible thing they could possibly be, versus like a policy position where we realistically acknowledge not everybody can achieve such a thing, if that makes sense. So like I would tell all of my friends, like, hey, you should do the best you can, or you should try to do the best you can, and you should, rise above and do all this. And then like from a policy point of view, I would never say, okay, well, we should have no welfare because we've told everybody to rise above, because you would acknowledge that not everybody can do that. Does that answer make sense? It's kind of a strange dichotomy, but
yeah. I 100% agree with you, and that's really it. I just want to say before I go back, thank you for being a more reasonable voice on the internet. Even the people that you disagree with, I guess if they see this, thank them as well, like for being more, for helping people like come to terms with their political beliefs and stuff like that.
Wow, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right. Yandere, you're next. Mana, you're whatever. Go ahead.
All right. What do you think of people like No Bullshit and Edgy Sphinx / Braving Ruin, as he changed his name to later, that try to garner audiences by appealing to like libertarians and moderate right wingers in order to
wait.
induct them to further right ideology?
No Bullshit changed his name to Braving Ruin? Wait, these are two different people.
Oh no, Edgy. I was naming two different users.
Oh.
There's No Bullshit, who did this, but there's also a guy called Edgy Sphinx, and he changed his name to Braving Ruin.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the Edgy Sphinx. Sorry. Okay. And then what was it? You said they changed their name to appeal to more libertarians, or?
No, they start out presenting ideas and stuff like that like appeal to libertarians, like moderate right wingers, like normie conservatives, and then slowly over time they kind of like bring in more like alt-right stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would let me just take issue with the premise real quick. I don't know if I would call No Bullshit an alt-righter. I think he's just a really fucking stupid conservative type person, or maybe he is, or no, I have to look at it. I think he's just really fucking dumb, probably pretty racist. I don't know what the fuck the story is with that Braving Ruin guy. I think he is kind of quasi almost alt-right, but he's also kind of black, so I don't know what the fuck his story is either. That guy is just fucking so stupid. It's hard for me to read too much because the amount of brain cells you lose trying to like sift through that garbage is unrecoverable. There's a lot of different stories for how people can kind of like snake in their points of view, and one thing that I realized is like the most damaging thing is people that call themselves centrists or moderates, and these people aren't actually centrist or moderate at all. They're the definition of don't ever have your mind so open that your brain falls out. So one problem we run into is like people like Dave Rubin will basically legitimize extremist viewpoints on the right by repackaging them in an unintentional way, I think, that makes them kind of more palatable to the masses. In some ways, this almost feels like there's actually a really cute little fallacy for this. It's called the Mott and Bailey. And what you end up with is somebody will present a viewpoint that isn't really that extreme or that radical, but that's not what they actually believe. And then they will bring in a more extreme point of view later, or they'll just never advocate for that more extreme point of view, but they're always kind of getting at it. So like an example of like a Mott and Bailey. Here's an example of a Mott and Bailey, okay? Some guy believes that women should never be allowed to work. Women should not be allowed in the workplace, period. The only place for a woman is to be at home. And that's what they talk about on their YouTube. That's what they talk about on their Twitter. That's what they talk about everywhere they go. But then they get invited to Dave Rubin's show, and they don't actually argue that. Instead, what they do is they bring out a more easily defensible position, and they argue that women are different than men. And every time they're presented with a centrist, that is the position that they'll argue, that women and men just have certain biological differences. Dave Rubin will always agree with this kind of person. They'll say, well, hold on. They make some good points. And the frustrating part is that the enlightened centrist will always find these easily defensible straw men that they'll agree with, when in reality, the person is only presenting that straw man to be agreed with so that they can later bring in their much more heavy-handed position. Because once they've got you, because if I'm brought on a show like that and I've got to argue with that guy, and they're saying, like, well, men and women have some biological differences. Like, I can't win that argument. Of course they do. I have to concede that. And if they stop there, then it seems like when they leave their show and then they argue later, well, we all know that women shouldn't be in the same workplace as men ever because, women and men are different. Well, it's like, well, fuck, I didn't even get to argue against your real position because you presented something that's so easily defensible. And then the moderates, it's always the fucking moderates moderates, the idiots like Armored Skeptic, Shoe on Head, sometimes that one dude with the fucking Mexican stash, I don't remember his name, Lacey started dating him for a little bit, or I don't know if they still are. All of these moderate figures, Sargon of Akkad, Dave Rubin, they end up defending these extremists because they're always defending the more tenable strawman position of these extremists without addressing their more extreme claims. It happens all the fucking time. Chris Reagan is voicing about it. And it's really, really, really fucking irritating because nobody is ever honest about what it is that they actually believe in. And you end up in this... If you've ever seen... do you know who Mouthy Buddha is? Or have you ever seen like the JF video on race realism?
Oh my gosh, I was actually thinking of them when you started talking.
Yeah, I'm putting together a big video like dissecting this. It's the perfect example.
Not an anti-Semite, just, you know...
Yeah, well, no, it's not even... It was their video on race realism, where basically JF talks for 6 minutes about the theory of evolution, and he pretends that he's talking about race. And it's this huge, dumb bait and switch. And race realists always do this. Like, oh, well, you can tell the difference between black and white people. Just look at them. They look different. And it's like, okay, yeah, but that's not what you're arguing about. You're saying there are fundamental differences in the structure of the brain, that our IQs are intrinsically different. Why are you pretending that you're just arguing that we look different? Like, that's not what you're arguing at all. It's a huge fucking problem that that shit happens, and it really fucking irritates me. Yeah, sorry. I don't even remember what the original question is. But yeah, there you go.
It's all good. We love your diatribes, Destiny.
Yeah, sorry. All right.
Yeah,
thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, no problem, buddy.
No, next question was Stan. Yeah, this guy. Original flavor. Go ahead.
Yo, mic check.
Yeah, it's working. Go ahead.
Hey, buddy. Hey, let me just preface this. Are you comfortable talking about Twitch stuff a little bit?
Sure. Why the fuck are you in it, you little fucking piece of shit? How did you even get perms in here?
I just wanted to talk.
Yeah. All right, go for it. Hit me up, dude.
So in light of Twitch kind of taking a stand on at least the most extreme politics on Twitch, right? And a little bit, maybe a cursory approach to censoring politically incorrect speech at the most extreme. Can you give us kind of a sense? Do you have a sense of what Twitch is going to do, possibly in the future, about issues like mental health? Not naming any names, but we all know that mental health is kind of an issue with some of the.
I don't think it's easy to do that, so I don't think they will. I don't think they'll do anything about it.
You don't think they're going to do anything?
No, it's too hard, and Twitch is like a mess internally right now. I don't think they could ever come up with a consistent position on that. Their whole last TOS revision was a fucking disaster. So.
Can you answer, because kind of the standpoint it seems like you've taken, especially with IRL, was that basically IRL was just waiting for one occurrence that was going to kind of push it right off the cliff, right, and all those people were going to get banned. And now it seems like almost with some of the mental health stuff that's going on, it might not even be on IRL, that something of that nature might happen.
I just what do you think is going to happen? Are they going to ban somebody for being bipolar or depressed, or
somebody's going to kill themselves or something? I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think they'll be able to pin it directly, like because they streamed and they were depressed, that now they're going to like.
I talked to esports about it a lot, so we're very pessimistic about the.
Yeah, I don't really think they're going to do anything about it. They're just too much internally of a mess at the moment. Maybe they should, but I don't even know about that. I don't know.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for talking to me, even though you hate me.
I don't hate you, buddy. Damn, I love you, dude.
Okay, dude.
Hey, be careful.
Take it easy.
Yep.
Next question comes from Justin. Next question comes from Justin. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, finally. Okay, hold on. I had such a good question.
Oh,
but
shit. Hold on. I actually have to leave right now. I'm really sorry, guys. It's been fun.
Oh.
No, I'm just fucking. I'm just fucking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I can kill myself. I had a good question about race, but apparently it's not allowed. It's a really good question.
We're not asking that, yeah.
Wait, why can't we? Wait, are you guys don't allow it, or you don't think I want to hear the question?
Well, I'm not sure if you want to go into like a race debate when we're having such a friendly, nice AMA.
Well, wait. What kind of? Well, what's the question? Well, I'm really curious.
It's not bad here. I'll ask it.
As long as the moderator's okay. I don't want to force you guys into something that you're not comfortable with.
No. We have no problem with it. We just don't want like this entire thing, or you being upset with some guy coming in with like a race, looking for like a debate about race. Because I'm sure you've had multiple ethno-nationalists or like race debates already.
Yeah, fucking go for it. Throw up the question. Go for it. I don't care.
Oh yeah, brother. Thank you. All right. So, what do you think is the main cause of African Americans with their crime rates? 13% population, 52% of the murder, whereas blacks are more likely to go to prison. their murders less correlated with gangs than white murder is? Like, what do you think is the main cause?
Yeah, so like I'm gonna take the I'm gonna take the extreme SJW intersectional approach here. I think that like whether or not somebody like the question of will you become a criminal, I think that there are countless factors that play into this, and my thought would be that a lot of these factors that play into this probably can explain the majority of the crime rate, and that until we address these factors, we should probably not assume that it's just due to genetics. So for instance, yeah, there's a lot of like socioeconomic factors that point towards crime. There's more than that. And even like just saying socioeconomic doesn't necessarily make sense, because there's even more to that sometimes. Like even controlling for socioeconomic factors, a lot of black people might be more likely to live in places that, for instance, have a lot of lead in them, as opposed to white people that live in more rural places without as much lead. That black people that are wealthy are more likely to live in neighborhoods with people that are not as wealthy, as opposed to white people that are wealthy that live more next to more wealthy people. There's like a million different factors. What? Sorry, go ahead.
Fatherlessness, I just want to say.
Yeah, fatherlessness is a big one. There's a ton of different factors in terms of culture that has evolved in a response to different things in the United States that might account for some of these things. There are specific policies in the United States, things like redlining, things like gerrymandering that push. There's so much that plays into it that I would hope that as we address more and more of these issues to get people on more even footing, and not even footing just like, well, look, they got some money now, but even footing like socially and geographically and everything, that hopefully these issues start to disappear a little bit. Or a lot of it. Okay, go ahead.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Perfect. Next person. So, okay, I guess I'll ask this. Oh, it's a long one. In the sciences, we study the natural order of how reality operates. An inference from naturalistic causation and the existence of necessary abstractions follows that we seek the most plausible naturalistic explanations for events and occurrences. Philosophically, do you reject the notion of invoking supernatural causation when deductively it becomes the most plausible explanation for identifying a crime? Do you want me to send it to you?
Well, I mean, I'm a materialist, so I always reject supernatural causation. If somebody were to tell me that supernatural reasons are the most likely reason for something is caused, then I would just argue that the most likely reason hasn't been discovered, and I would look for something in a materialistic sense. Like, that would be my answer.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, like, in the history of all of mankind, as we've searched for answers, this might be a fallacious appeal to tradition or some shit, I'm not sure, but like every time we've searched for answers that have been explained by the supernatural, they've always ended up being not supernatural. So the idea that some explanation in the future might be supernatural, I think it's more likely that the answer would be materialistic in nature rather than, but yeah.
Okay.
I would be interested in what he thinks is like something that is most likely supernatural in explanation, and please don't let it be the fucking probability of the universe existing or something.
I don't know. No, I don't want to. I'll ask him to talk that out for you, and you can have a look at it later, maybe. Next person is Concordia. Oof, I've been neglecting this guy a while.
Hello.
Go ahead, Concordia.
Yes, hello,
Yeah.
Omni Destiny. My name is Concordia. I want to ask you, should, in your view, states in the United States have the right to secede?
Fuck, dude. Government ethics are really hard for me because it's like a whole level of abstraction from normal ethics, which I barely sort of kind of have a little itty bit of a grasp on, which compared to any like student of philosophy, again, any third year like philosophy student is going to know more than me about every issue of ethics or morals or philosophy. So like when you ask me like, should a state have the right to secede? I don't know what the answer to that is from like an ethical point of view. Now from an economic or pragmatic point of view, I would argue, well, of course not. We don't ever want people to secede because it would be bad for everybody. So I mean, like, that's the only answer I can give to that. From like a political theory, philosophy point of view, I don't know if I could give a better answer than that.
Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be asking Ed a question on his behalf. What are your thoughts on Patrick Little? Do you think he's the beginning of a wide far-right emergence in state politics?
I have no idea who that is. Sorry. Patrick Little?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Wait, this isn't the guy. Oh, is this one of the, like, there's a ton of people in the U.S. that are popping up that are, like, these, like, fucking literal Nazi dudes. There was that one dude that was, like, a literal pedophile, too. Is this, like, one of those guys that talks about how he's not politically correct?
I'm not familiar with him either, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't think, is this guy winning his district, or does anybody know?
Oof.
Oh, wait, I don't actually... Well, he's saying he's, like, in reparations for slavery. Is he, like, on the opposite? Wait, build the wall, deport them all. I have no fucking idea. I don't know anything about this guy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I can't
I'll
give
ask
a
him
good
to
answer.
type
I'm
it up
sorry.
later, so I can- Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. I'll just ask him to type it up for you later.
Sure.
Why are the Mexicans sneaking ISIS into NASCAR?
Is that happening right now? Yikes.
Sorry about that one. Okay, sure, I'll ask this question. How should the UK proceed, from a hard Brexit or from a soft Brexit?
Are you asking which one they should do or how they should proceed from either?
I'm assuming it's either.
I don't know. I mean, it
That's
seems
how-
to me that Brexit economically and socially is a really bad idea. But I mean, like, if you're the person that thinks that Brexit is a good idea, then you're probably willing to suffer some economic harms in order to further whatever the reason was that you voted for Brexit. So I don't know. Like, as an American, it's very hard for me to answer. It really depends on which side you fall on. Like, if you're an anti-Brexiter, then you obviously want to undo it, but that can't happen. You can't undo it now that it's been done. And if you're a pro-Brexiter, I don't know all of the implications, like legislatively and economically, where the UK goes from there. It seems like wherever they're going is going to be worse than they were before. So I don't know. I don't know what more of an answer I can give than that.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough. Okay, board pens, you're up again. All right, you've been unmuted. Go ahead, buddy.
Do you think it's possible to find a solution to the mass shootings in the U.S. without getting rid of the NRA?
I think these are two separate questions. Fuck the NRA. I fucking hate the NRA. I'm a proud gun owner in the United States, and I love shooting. It's a lot of fun to me. I fucking hate the NRA. I think the NRA is grossly irresponsible in both their rhetoric and the propaganda that they fucking put out. I fucking hate the NRA. Firstly, so secondly, in terms of addressing shootings in the United States, I don't know what the best way to do that is. It seems like we're the only country that has these problems in the scale that we do, I believe. I don't know what the way to solve them is. The big problem with the U.S. anytime we talk about gun shit is there are already so many guns here that I don't know if any kind of gun control helps. Like, there's more guns in the U.S. than there are people. There's over 350 million firearms in the U.S. If we make things illegal, I don't know if that actually keeps them out of the hands of people or not. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of kids that go to shoot up schools that have legally acquired firearms. Some steal them from their parents. I don't. Fuck, it's a really, really complicated question. I don't know what the profile is of a school shooter, if there's a way to keep that out of the hands of people. Arguably, there are a lot of small things that we can do that can help. For instance, our, is it the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms Agency? The way that they have to, like, register guns and shit is, like, very archaic. It's very strange because of all the restrictions we put on them. The FBI is not allowed to put you on a no-gun list. It's very difficult to do it. They can no-fly list you, but they can't put you on a no-gun list, except for in extreme circumstances. I don't know if these little things would help or not. It's hard to say. The gun issue in the U.S. is really fucking complicated. We have to find a way to get rid of all of the guns that already exist here in order to actually solve the problem.
All right. Okay, fair enough. FK, go ahead.
Hey, so with the rise, like with how much power content creators have, we see an example with Ice Poseidon, who just had his fans call up swatting on one of the people he's been having issues with. Should a content creator be held responsible at all for the actions of their fans?
Morally, yes. Like, legally, I don't think so. I'm a big believer that your fan base is a reflection of yourself to some extent, that if your fan base is the kind that runs around and does horrible fucking shit all the time, at some end, you have to feel some moral culpability for that. I think that a lot of people... I think most people try to, like, wiggle out of that, especially the skeptic dipshits will constantly say things like, oh, I can't help my fan base, that's just them, I'm not in control of them. People will say that shit a lot, but I do think that you are the largest influential factor over your fan base. So if your fan base is involved in a lot of, like, really fucked up, disgusting shit like that, I think you need to answer for that. You have some responsibility there to make them not be involved in those activities.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I'm just uncomfortable legally, like, enforcing it because that gets into a lot of weird areas. What if you've got one fan that runs and, like, shoots up a school or some shit? Is that your fault now? I don't know if that's necessarily true. But if somebody like that one guy that went and shot up was it a mosque or some shit that was, like, a huge follower of Ben Shapiro? I think it's reasonable to say that people like Ben Shapiro, like, their rhetoric can very easily lead people down the path to where they would be violent towards Muslims or whatnot.
All right. If you're on here later, I want to add on a little bit to that, but thank you for right now.
Yeah,
sure thing.
Thank you for the question. Jen wants to ask if there are any books that you think are a must-read for everyone.
Oh, dude, there probably are, but I'm really bad. I'm a really bad reader. You shouldn't talk to me about reading. The only reason, like, I got really lucky in life that I started playing video games at an early age, and a lot of the video games that I played were JRPGs, and that helped me learn reading a lot. So that's the only reason why I'm a decent reader, yeah. But I can't, like, recommend you books. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I just don't read that much.
Okay, sure. Doodlebug has a question for you. Here you go, Doodlebug.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good, buddy.
So I was curious, earlier you were talking about how you're willing to waive your moral stance on abortion in a practical pursuit to like make the world a better place.
Pragmatically, yeah.
And I have like similar pragmatic convictions, and I'm interested at what point do you forego your ethical or moral stances on an issue? Like, at what point do you think it's better to do that? And do you think that helps having ideological like discussions be honest and productive?
I mean, I think it helps, even if you don't necessarily like advocate for your personal philosophy from a legal point of view because of pragmatic reasons. I think it helps to have those baser views because they kind of inform everything else you do. Like if somebody feels some way, then it'll kind of like inform. So like, for instance, like I really, really, really don't like abortion. So I will hardcore push for any type of policy that reduces the number of abortions by reducing the amount of teenage pregnancy, for instance. So like, because I'm so anti-abortion, I'm very much in favor of contraception. I'm in favor of subsidized contraception for poor people, or for, you know, more sex education in schools that can demonstrate positive results in less teenage pregnancy. And that's all influenced by my position to where I just don't like the idea of abortion. I think it's bad, so we should avoid it as much as possible. So, yeah, I think that you can have, like, a personal position, and then the policy positions you advocate for don't necessarily line up with it, but they're still influenced by it, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Sure thing.
Okay, Cape Paxmel has a question for you. If he's here. I'm not sure if he's here. Okay, it doesn't seem like he's here. 1 second. What is your view on the NSA, CIA, and the FBI? Do you buy into the narrative of the deep state?
No, anybody that believes in the deep state is a fucking idiot. Full stop. The oftentimes the understanding of the deep state it literally roots from ignorance. The idea that the NSA and the CIA and the FBI, that are three totally independent organizations that operate in the U.S. government, that all have totally different directives and different like mission areas and everything. The idea that these organizations are all somehow covertly in cahoots with one another when they have totally different leadership, it's a totally fucking stupid statement. It's just dumb. The only way a person can unironically make some sort of argument that the deep state is influencing all of these organizations is just somebody that doesn't know fundamentally how any of these organizations work. It's just really stupid.
Yeah, sure. I'm assuming Parmi you wanted to.
I just want to say I fucking love you for saying that. Oh my god, yes.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, good. Okay, Paxmel, you want to say something?
That real quick. Let me qualify that a little bit more. I mean, I do believe that government can engage in some level of conspiracy. So, and maybe conspiracy isn't the best word, but like the NSA spying on citizens, I totally believe that that's a fucking thing. I mean, post Snowden, I mean, we've seen a lot of that, and then in other ways we've seen that happens. That the CIA can engage in really fucked up behavior, like we've seen with like MK Ultra stuff that's been declassified from that, and. You know, like that kind of stuff is possible. It's just what I specifically reject is this notion that the FBI, the NSA, and the CIA, all of these organizations can come together and work together to push some secret political narrative that has never been leaked, that nobody really knows about. Like that level of cooperation between three totally different government agencies, that is just totally unprecedented and totally unrealistic and totally absurd. That's specifically what I'm rejecting. I just want to qualify that a little bit more. Okay, there you go. All right.
Yeah, sure. Okay, Paxmel wanted to ask you. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I'm here now. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Sorry, this is slightly removed from the questions you received so far, but I'm sure you have some good insight on it anyway. What do you think about the changes being made to YouTube in terms of like the non-chronological subfeed? People having to jump through hoops to make sure that they receive notifications on the people that they subscribe to. How do you think that's going to change for creators? Is it going to make it more difficult, and also how is it going to affect? How do you think it's going to affect the demographics that are attracted towards the platform?
So my answer to this is going to be really disappointing because I can only talk around this issue. I can only talk around this issue and I can't answer it directly. So the one problem is that we don't really know exactly what changes YouTube is making to their algorithm. We always have to kind of guess via metadata and whatnot. A second problem is that a lot of people are very dishonest about how the YouTube algorithm works. For instance, somebody might accidentally become unsubscribed from a channel and then now everybody's saying that things are unsubbing you. And like a lot of those cases have been turned out to be untrue. There are a lot of people that are just kind of stupid, like Ethan from H3H will just make like really dumb statements like this is the end of YouTube here when they talk about different algorithm changes that end up not being true. So this conversation is already really hard to have because you've got to peel back like a fuck ton of misinformation right from the start. So and for me personally, I don't know what changes YouTube is making to their algorithm or if they're better or worse. I will say that any change that's made to make YouTube better is probably going to piss off a lot of big content creators because generally algorithms favor people that are already really popular. So if you change something in that algorithm, you're probably going to favor them a little bit less, which means that they're going to be upset necessarily by it. Like an example of this, if you're familiar with Twitch TV, like on Twitch, we sort everything by viewership. So so like for me, if I go to stream a new game or some shit, like I'm going to get a lot of viewers just because I'm already a big streamer, which it's good for me.
Yeah.
But if Twitch ever changes that so that the discovery becomes better or you can find people that you're more likely to watch instead of me, I'm going to complain about it, right? Well, what fuck, dude? This is bullshit. I used to be able to stream this game and get a ton of viewers, and now people can't even find my stream. I was like, okay, well, that's because they're sorting more accurately, and instead of you just being there because you're the biggest streamer, well, now people can actually discover content based on other criterion as well. Whether that's actually happening at YouTube or not, I don't actually know. But again, I can only kind of talk around this, just things to keep in mind.
Yeah, just for what? So one last one is. So do you think that YouTube could do a much better job in informing people on like what's going on with the algorithm, trying to get people to understand, like putting it out in layman's terms and giving them like as much information as possible?
Maybe. Fuck, I don't know. I guess like well, I would argue yes, transparency is always good. The Google counter argument would be, well, if we're too transparent, people are going to abuse it. I don't know what the correct answer is there. I don't know what the correct answer is there. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, sure. Thanks, man.
Mm-hmm.
Someone
real quick. Someone in chat said anyone with a computer science background once again shakes their head at the rampant misuse of the term algorithm. So I don't know if that guy thinks that algorithm is uniquely a comp sci term or if he's just being facetious. So when I'm talking about algorithm, I'm talking about the sorting mechanisms that are used to determine which content shows up on your feed, which I think most people kind of colloquially refer to as an algorithm. I've never heard somebody say that statement is incorrect before, unless that guy thinks that that's wrong. Sorry. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Blackburn wanted to ask something. Blackburn, I'm muting you.
Hey again.
Go ahead, Blackburn.
So what do you think about Islamists or Muslims who want to live under theocracy over democracy in the Middle East, specifically by their own will?
I mean, I think it's shit, but I don't know if I, as an American, have a right to tell you how you should run your government. I don't know if I have the right to do that. So if you want to run a theocracy in some country in the Middle East, I mean, what right do I have to tell you what kind of government you should use?
Right, and do you not think that that would possibly, cause a lot of human rights abuses?
It's possible, but then we would have to decide as a society which human rights abuses we want to intervene on.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Leaf just wants to ask it. Yeah, go ahead. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I think it just muted.
Oh.
Do you think we should provide an alternative form of education that caters to students that may be suffering from mental health issues like depression and anxiety?
It would depend on what the literature bears out. I mean, if there's like a positive value in doing that, a lot of my questions are going to sound like cop-outs. I'm sorry, but like, I guess like if you were to do like a test or a study where putting children into a school like that is better, then maybe that would be a good thing. I don't know what the correct answer is there. My child has ADHD, and when I communicate with special resources at school, what they tell me is that typically you want to avoid taking a child out of school as much as possible because you want to keep them integrated with normal social people because it reinforces pro-social behavior. I don't know if that's like, if that speaks to every type of mental affliction. I don't know if that's a nice word to say or not, but any type of like mental problem. I don't know what the correct answer is there. I would just refer to whatever the research is on that.
What about like a specialized school that creates an environment for people with ADHD?
So my problem, and so again, so I've got a son with ADHD, so these are things that I have to think about. The thing that would scare me here, and you could always design a school that maybe accounts for this, is that if my son goes to a school that's specialized for people with ADHD, once he graduates from that school, he's not going to live in a world with people a world that's specialized for people in ADHD. So once he goes to college, he's not going to have a special catering to his ADHD there. Once he enters the workforce, he's not going to have a catering to his ADHD there. And in social circles around whatever any of these groups, he's not going to be catered to his ADHD there. So I would prefer that we work with him in whatever way via therapy or medication in order to moderate that ADHD or to bring it under control so that he's capable of existing in the social environments that already exist, rather than creating a unique and special one for him that will hinder his ability to integrate with those environments later in life. That would be that's like my intuition. Now, if there's some psych research that bears out a different conclusion, that like putting them in an isolated school actually makes them more social later in life, then I would of course be in favor of that. But that's where I stand on that currently.
Thank you for the question. Okay, so just ask another rather long question. Under a materialistic worldview, how do you account for the foundation of non-material epistemic facts? For example, when we converse or argue, we assume that both parties are not engaging in misleading information, dishonesty, logical fallacies, and misrepresentation.
Here's some money for Nathan Nathanrus.
I mean, like, this sounds like it might. If this question might be coming from somebody that just knows way more than me, so I don't know if I can give an answer that they don't already know. I mean, like, I think that you assume that people aren't engaging in dishonesty using forms of like intuitive deduction. So like if you're arguing with me and I know your platform and I know your history and I know everything and I know that you know that people can fact check you, like I think I would assume intuitively I'm sorry. Not intuitively, inductively, I would kind of reason that, I mean, I can't truly deductively know what happens in your mind, but I can inductively reason that you shouldn't be lying to me or whatever based on, you know, emotional ways that you act or reasonable ways that you act or what your past history statements have been or whatever, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that guy might already know that answer. I don't know who asked that. Sorry, that's a disappointing answer.
Yeah, sure. I'm assuming Patriot Act wants to ask you this question.
Okay.
Have me ask it.
Yes.
1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Cheers. So you indicated in the last question that you responded to mine that the Manisa did spy on its citizens.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Wait, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
So, despite your past response, given your last response to my question about the deep state, you did indicate that the NSA spies on its citizens. Well, despite that being false, do you personally think that there's enough oversight of these agencies, both legally and congressionally?
That's a really hard question to answer. I don't know what the correct answer is to that. So the arguments given on both sides is that, one, more oversight means that we as citizens, you know, can make, or politicians can make more informed decisions about how we want our government to run. And then the argument on the other side is that too much oversight or too much peering into these agencies hampers their ability for them to effectively do their jobs. I don't think I'm qualified enough to give a good answer on what the balance should be. Yeah, sorry, that's like the best I can do there. Because for instance, like I could say like we need way more oversight. The NSA spying is fucking horrible. It's possible that, you know, I get thrown in a black bag and then taken to a room with a top TSI guy, and he starts telling me, hey, listen, we've actually stopped like 52 terrorist attacks in the last 2 years. If we were to give you the kind of oversight that you want, then like our ability to counteract terrorists, you know, here and abroad is completely destroyed. Like that's what you're asking for. In which case, I would reconsider my position. But it's also possible that I argue, you know, we don't need any more oversight. You know, what exists right now is totally fine. And then, you know, some, you know, resistance group captures me and they're like, hey, listen, actually, we want you to know that there's actually like political prisoners, like people from the U.S. are being sent to Abu Ghraib and shit. And like, we need to do something about this. Like, this is totally fucked up. And I'm like, oh shit. Well, yeah, we definitely need more oversight. So yeah, it just comes down to like, I don't know if I can really, if I'm like qualified to answer that. Yeah, sorry. There you go.
Those are good. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for the question. Adrian wants to ask this question. Go ahead, Adrian.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear
So
you.
I wanted to ask, what is the process that you go through when you're changing your mind on certain topics, and can you explain it with an example, perhaps?
I don't know. I guess like basically, I just tried to like listen to as many people as possible, and I tried to put myself in communities where everybody disagrees with me. That's why I'm in the vegan server. That's why I post in a lot of places where everybody's like calling me names and shit. I figured that like if I have an idea and it can survive scrutiny in communities of people that hate me, that the idea is probably pretty solid. And then I don't know. I try to be as introspective as possible. I try to like review as much as possible. Like, am I being delusional about this? I try to ask myself like, what would it take me to convince me out of this position? I try to constantly review my own experiences to make sure that everything is consistent. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just like a process of like growing and being as open to adversaries and new ideas as much as possible, and to avoid like I religiously avoid circle jerks. Like I try not to like spend time in a lot of areas where everybody agrees with me all the time. I don't think it's healthy for the mind. I think it's possible to stagnate. I'm really scared of surrounding myself with people that agree with me and then never changing my mind on anything. Yeah. You asked. Or sorry, go ahead.
So I'm also wanted to ask, would you like change your mind instantaneously on a topic if you found out that like you couldn't debate it well against an opponent who knew a bit better than you?
No, my process is usually a little bit more involved. It's very rare that I'm going to like change my mind instantly on a topic, because if I'm arguing about something, I usually have like a pretty strong feeling towards it. And when I say feeling, I mean I've read into it somewhat. If somebody challenges me on a position though, and I can't mount like a good defense of it, then I'll spend personal time researching and figuring out like a better way to defend the position. And if I find out through more research that position is indefensible, then I'll change my mind on it. And I'll be like, well, like I can't defend this position. I personally can't live with that cognitive dissonance of advocating for a position that I know I can't defend against a certain person, unless I have like with a few exceptions to that, depending on the topic, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Like there are certain, I guess, like just to clarify in the end, like there are certain levels of conspiracy theory that I think are unreasonable to demand that everybody goes into. For instance, like I don't think I could ever win a debate against the world's smartest flat earther. I would lose that debate every time, just because the knowledge of physics and everything is going to be greater than mine, thus that they'll always be able to out argue me on every topic. So yeah, there are some exceptions to that.
Hey buddy. One more, okay?
Yeah, sure. Next person is Normal Man.
Hey, what?
Oh, no.
What's up?
Hi.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, it's you. What's up, buddy?
Hey, so I think you've said this, you've mentioned this a couple times on stream, that you like don't regret anything, and because it makes you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering, I mean, on a personal level, in light of the reaction and the kind of backlash to some of the debates in the past couple years, that ended up with the Twitter thing and all that drama. I mean, are there any positions that you think you've taken in any of these discussions that you actually regret? Maybe like the Amos Yee thing comes to mind.
So the thing that makes it hard for me to do this is that like I feel like I have been of clear mind, so I'm not under the influence of any type of drug, or I'm not having any psychotic episodes, and I don't have like a brain tumor or anything that I'm aware of that is like altering my ability to understand things that have happened. The thing is that in every single event I've been involved in, I've gotten so much perspective and so much experience and so much knowledge from it that it's really hard for me to say, I wish I could take away that one thing, because I don't know how much perspective I would lose had I not experienced that one thing. You know, like so it's really hard for me to like it might be easy for me to say, like, man, I wish I would have never debated Amos Yee, and now everybody calls me a pedophile. But you know,
the cost is so high.
The cost is high, but keep in mind that my primary goal isn't political advocacy. It's like it's acquiring truth and knowledge, right? That sounds really tippy, but like so now like. Sure, but I have this perspective now on how people will twist words that you say, or how people are so disingenuous and will take things out of context. I mean, well, for me, so again, keep in mind that we have different goals. If your goal is to be the biggest political or the biggest public figure possible with the most social media platforms, well, then obviously that's a failure. But my goal is generally just the pursuit of knowledge, the things that are true. So I think I have gained, that's a really good experience for me, and I have gained a pretty unique perspective there that I think helps me understand other positions and what other people say. And I don't know if I would ever trade any of those kinds of experiences for, to get back my social media account or whatever, to get back my Twitter or anything.
I'm not trying to put you in a corner, but
yeah, no, I understand.
But just from the standpoint of like your career as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's as a viewer, it's incredibly annoying to me that you don't have a Twitter now.
Well, yeah,
right?
tell me
And
about
I
it.
guess
It's really
that-
annoying to me too. You have no fucking idea.
is that going anywhere or what?
I don't know.
No.
Hopefully someday the New York Times is posting some article, or somebody's posting. I can't talk about that. Hopefully in the future, like there's stuff that gets posted that maybe will change that. But it's possible it never does change. It's possible it does in the future. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, yeah, I don't know. No, it's really annoying. I
All right,
agree.
man.
It hurts.
I'm
It sucks.
really-
But yeah.
I'm surprised and kind of happy that you've maintained that standpoint.
Sure.
Because I mean, after like a couple years, I'd be probably pretty bad. I'd be like, ah, well, shouldn't have said that, right? Like,
Yeah.
in hindsight.
Sure. And I mean, like, there are things that I won't say now that I understand, but I understand it so much better because I've learned through experience. So, I'm not going to have very many conversations about, like, pedophilia or incest. Like, these types of, like, these are interesting conversations
Is that
to me.
off the table now?
Yeah, it pretty much is, which is unfortunate. Like, I love these conversations because they're so interesting because they let you explore these ethical positions that are intuitively so disgusting, but then it forces you to justify it. I love those conversations. But now I realize that because of certain political groups, you literally can't have those conversations because all they're looking to do is quote snipe you and be disingenuous fucks. But that experience is really valuable for me. I don't know. It helps me when I'm making former arguments. Like, and again, like my own fan base gets annoyed by it, but I've seen people in this chat comment on it. They're like, I'm really careful to clarify and qualify all of my statements. Like, this is what I mean when I say this. I'm not really qualified to say this. I'm only speaking in regards to the U.S. for this. Like, you know, I think that I've gained a level of clarity in my statements that I otherwise wouldn't have if I wasn't punished so hard in the past for not being rigidly fucking clear in everything I say, because people are constantly looking to take you out of context.
Thank you for the question. So now it's normal, man. Sorry about that. You should be. Yeah, there we go. Go ahead. You're unmuted.
Should we force vaccination on our children?
From a moral point of view, as a parent, you absolutely should. From a government policy, I'm a little bit less comfortable saying yes, but just because the medical research and everything is so fucking overwhelming in that direction, I would say yes, we absolutely should.
Hey again. So I have two questions real quickly. So the first one is, why do you think that countries should base their laws on human rights, the ones declared by the United Nations, even though they don't subscribe to humanist or personal liberties? Like, they don't believe in them.
Why should countries base their rights on human rights?
No, base their laws on human rights, even though they don't.
Because they're humans? I mean, what else would they base their laws on, as opposed to what?
Well, they don't subscribe to humanist ideals, right? So they don't believe in personal liberties and so on.
I mean, you
So
can not
why
believe
should
in.
they-
You can be a non-liberal or non-classical liberal and still believe in human rights. Like, you could be like, I think like leftists, like Marxists and whatnot, aren't liberals, but they could still believe in human rights. No.
Right, but not all of them. Most according to the UN, most countries should, as to not have human rights violations, they should follow all human rights. So I was wondering, why should they have like an incentive to follow them if they don't believe in them?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you have a right to tell another country that. I'm not sure. I mean, you can sanction them or say you don't want to work with them if they're not going to. I mean, that's within your power, but.
Oh, okay. So another one, real quickly, is just a follow up to the abortion question you had earlier. You said that you're morally against abortion, but legally speaking, you think it should be legal.
Yeah.
However, and you said that it's because it's always going to happen illegally, so might as well make it legal.
Yeah, it's unenforceable. Yeah.
So can we say the same thing about murder? Because even though it's illegal, it happens all the time.
Well, but I think that generally the evidence for murder is usually there. We account for all of our people pretty well. I mean, it's pretty hard to murder somebody and get away with it. That's pretty exceptional, no? Whereas to have an abortion, like, for me to murder somebody and get away with it, I would have to find somebody with no family, with no relatives, without anybody keeping track of them, and then I'd have to kill him and nobody would see it. Like, there's a lot that I have to go through. But if a woman becomes like 2 months pregnant and she's just got like an itty-bitty baby bump, and then she like goes to the bathroom and like smashes a bunch of Plan B or some shit, how is anybody ever really going to know? Like, it's totally unenforceable, I think. Or how are you going to know the difference between like an accidental miscarriage versus? It just seems totally unenforceable. Whereas murder seems pretty easily enforceable.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Next question comes from Ultra Intrinsic Shaggy, and he's not here, so I'm assuming he wants me to answer that question. you said that given that there's an oversupply of high-level STEM degrees, do you think that giving foreign skilled workers a chance to integrate into the United States is a form of colonialism, where instead of extracting resources, you extract human? Are you here? Okay, ask the question.
He was serving muted.
Okay,
He didn't respond to me on whatever, but go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, given that there is right now an oversupply of highly skilled workers, shouldn't the US kick out all the foreign high-skilled workers and import low-skilled workers instead? Because that way they are extracting human resources from less fortunate countries and they cannot develop their own countries. They have to be like random accountants instead of being like very, very successful scientists and entrepreneurs in their own countries.
So I'm not sure if sorry, what was the end of that? Sorry.
Well, isn't it more moral to kick out all the highly skilled workers from Africa and China and other countries and import the low skilled workers, like poorer people?
Moral in what sense?
Well, you give them chance to develop their own countries. You have all these smart people instead of being like random cashiers and accountants. They go into their countries and they are forced to survive in their harsh environments and build up civilization. And you import the low-skilled workers to the United States and they work manual labor and everyone gets, exotic food and everyone is happy in the end.
I guess I would have to think about like the morality of this. I don't know if we have any moral obligations regarding importing or exporting people for economic reasons. I guess empirically, I've done a decent amount of reading into brain drain, if that's the phenomenon you're talking about, and I haven't really seen any empirical data that says that brain drain is a real issue that countries experience, that high-skilled labor leaving hurts the country. I just haven't seen that borne out empirically. And then locally, I don't know if there's an oversupply of highly skilled labor. I mean, if there are more of those people coming in and the cost of the labor falls, ideally, that means that the business should save money and the customer should save money from a capitalist point of view. But go ahead.
Well, when I say oversupply, I mean that you have like people who spend 9 to 10 years getting their PhDs, and they go and do something completely retarded compared to what they used to do. And this is just a waste of money and time.
There's a lot baked in here that I'd have to deconstruct the statement. So like, I don't think that people generally get PhDs to work. That's pretty rare. Like most of, at least for like tech software jobs and whatnot, you're not getting like a PhD. I don't even know if you get much more than a bachelor's, and then you start working on your certifications and your work experience. Like master's and PhD stuff is normally for research-related jobs or maybe like education-related jobs. With some exceptions, like you go to med school to do doctor and whatnot related stuff. So I don't know if people necessarily get PhDs to go enter the workforce, firstly. And then secondly, I don't know if just because you don't get a good job with a degree, I don't know if that's a wasted degree. I guess it depends on what you go to school for. I think learning is a good thing, and I think that learning things is a good thing. And if you want to get a PhD in something, that's fine. But just because you got a PhD and you weren't able to get a certain job, I don't know if that makes the PhD wasted completely.
Well, imagine that you were learning rocket science and then go and you are doing sand castles as a job. Do you think it was worthwhile to spend getting a PhD in science?
No, that sounds pretty shitty if that was your goal, was to do rocket science.
That's how it usually happens, because the number of research positions is very low, and in the United States, top 5 schools produce like 90% of professors who are tenured in most of the United States universities. It's like all the other schools that are there, they just throw out their PhDs without any future possibility of employment.
Well, that's kind of on you then to make a decision on what you want to get a PhD in then, right? If you get a PhD and your goal is to get a good job and you don't have a job prospect lined up or you weren't able to make that happen, that's kind of on you then, no?
Well, yes, but that's the point I'm making, that why don't we kick those people into their own countries so that they are forced to develop things from scratch and use their brains and the skills that they gain, instead of them becoming like sandcastle builders?
I I mean, I don't know. If I'm a company and I want to hire somebody and somebody wants to come to this country to work, I wouldn't want the government to kick them out just to favor somebody else. I don't know. I just don't like that, I guess, from an economic point of view.
But what's the difference whether you have someone building a sandcastle with a PhD or whether that's a kid?
Well, why are they building the sandcastle with a PhD and the other person getting hired? Why wouldn't you hire the person instead who's building the sandcastle?
Because the HR thinks that just because you have a PhD you're like uber mega good and you need a PhD to do that kind of job when you really don't.
Man, I would need I just don't know where this happens. Like needing a PhD to work seems so incredibly rare.
Quantitative analysis.
What?
Like quantitative analysis, quants.
Okay.
There is a notion of such a thing called quant on Wall Street where they just go and do something which you can do with first-year bachelor's level education in STEM. And people get PhDs in some of the most difficult fields, and then they go and be like, oh, I can't find a job, so now I'm going to work for this bullshit job and just get money.
Wait, so they get a PhD in quantitative analysis, and then they go to work in Wall Street?
No. They get PhDs in something like string theory or math or name whatever, or theoretical computer science or logic or whatever. And then they go and do quantitative analysis. But to know quantitative analysis, all you need to do is know first-year math courses. That's all. You can just get rid of all the other things.
I guess
try wrapping it up, right? Because we have other questions.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah, I guess, maybe I just don't understand the question well enough. Like, if you spend a lot of money on education, you get a degree, and then you end up not working anything related to that at all. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to kick people out of the country because you couldn't figure out your career path. That just seems like a really suboptimal way of doing things. I feel like it should be more on the individual to figure out what I want to go into school for.
Well, think about it. If you take then smart individuals out of Africa, the only people who are able to make that perform those tasks in that country, you deprive those countries of the possibility of ever developing those fields. Instead, you take these people and give them possibility to, become a Wall Street worker, random worker, which any other person can do here in my country instead.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. I've never seen that demonstrated ever. The idea that if you take high-skilled labor out of a country, that all of a sudden it hurts that country. It seems like there are a lot of I've seen a lot of conflicting research here that when people leave, it causes a greater investment in that local area for people to invest in education. That sometimes they leave, but they'll send intellectual resources back, that they can train people back there to do more things. That it ends up being a benefit. I don't know. That's just a really iffy area for me. Are you in the AMA chat here?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry I can't answer this in more detail. I had a really big discussion on immigration that I did with a white nationalist, and brain drain was one of the arguments that he gave. I linked that document. If you control F brain drain, it's argument number 9. I guess you can look at the research that I've got cited there. I mean, if you disagree with that, or maybe you'll find something that you didn't know, or maybe you'll find something that I'm wrong about, and then you can point that out. But that's where I went. I just didn't see strong arguments in favor of when I looked at brain drain. I just didn't see anything that made it sound like that was a huge issue for other countries. I wasn't borne out in any empirical data. Sorry, that's all I got.
Which countries were they? Which countries?
What? Or sorry. Wait. What was this last thing?
Which countries did they make the research for?
I think these were mainly South American countries. I guess when I was looking at remittances, it was speaking about places not just, I'm sorry. So Guyana, Grenada, there's Latin American countries, the Caribbeans, I don't know. There's a lot of different stuff listed there. Yeah, you can look through it. Jamaica's there,
That's the thing.
Okay.
All right, good luck.
Thank you for the question.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Okay. Next one comes from Kasiwo, and he says, "Are there people on the left that you would want to denounce, or any organizations included? So individuals, figures, organizations."
I mean, I'm sure there are. I just can't think of any at the moment. The more extreme people, I don't typically like reactionaries, and the more extreme people I typically don't like on either side. Not to say that both are equivalent. I'm sure if he had an example, I'm sure I could find some that I don't like. I don't know if Bill Maher counts as a lefty. I don't know how that guy is he kind of does his own thing. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Yeah, no, okay, yeah, that's about it. Thank you. Next
Oh,
question
Turks. How
comes
about Turks?
from-
Those are the trans-exclusionary radical femmes, trans-exclusionary radical feminists. Those guys are, I guess, count as left-leaning people. I don't like those guys, if that makes sense.
Sure. Antifa included in that? I don't know what your stance is on political violence.
I don't fucking know, dude. I have to do more reading into Antifa. Like, I'll see some bad shit posted, and then somebody will link me some good shit posted, and I see bad shit posted, and I say, I don't know. And then I go back and forth on my view on political violence, so I don't really know. I'm kind of on the wall about things like Antifa. I don't know.
Sure. Okay. Primary, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sweet. So as you can tell, there's a certain theme for my questions. So next one, do you think the US should pull out of Afghanistan despite all gains made, especially prior to the slow drawdown in 2014? And your thoughts on Putin supporting the Assad regime in Syria, a regime using chemical weapons for the past number of years?
What was the first part of your question? You got cut out a little.
First part with US. What are your thoughts on US forces pulling out of Afghanistan despite gains made?
Everything regarding foreign policy in the Middle East is a total fucking mess. So I don't have like any strong opinions one way or the other, unfortunately. I think that the U.S. is very dishonest about why we fuck around in the Middle East a lot. We pretend that we're there for humanitarian reasons, when in reality we're there for personal geopolitical gains. So it's really hard to give like an honest answer about anything there, just because of how currently fucked our whole involvement is for everything. Yeah. Like, it's hard for me to say, for instance, that like we should depose Assad because he used chemical weapons on his people. It's hard for me to say that when I know that bad shit goes on, like in Africa, that we don't give a fuck about. The only reason we care about Assad is because he's loyal to Putin. So like, it's hard for me to say, like, oh yeah, we need to go after Assad while turning a blind eye to everything south of the equator. Like, I don't know, that bothers me.
Okay, cheers.
Wait, hold on, I'm busy right now.
Sure. Next person is Dax. 1 second. And I believe he wants to ask this question himself. Go ahead, Dax.
Hey, Destiny.
Hey, Dax.
Sorry, I've seen you mention on stream before that you don't really like when people identify with their culture, something to that effect. I don't know if you want to expand on that, because I think it's an interesting idea.
These are issues that I try not to talk about as much anyway, because I don't know how much stems from my kind of individual outlook on life versus what's responsible to advocate for publicly. For me personally, I don't identify strongly with any groups. So like, and I mean that like in almost like any groups. Like, I don't even call myself like a fucking gamer because of how much dumb shit people say. But also because
Right.
I just don't see any benefit to doing so. So like, I don't feel strongly about being an American. I don't feel strongly about being white, or strongly about being male or whatever. Like when I view myself, if I were to list out things, I would list out like my hobbies and my traits and things that I prefer to do. But it would never be like groups that I'm involved in, I guess, if that makes sense. And I see like all the negatives that come out from people saying like, oh, like I love my culture and my country. And it's like, okay, well, I think you can get all of those positives without all the baggage that comes with being part of those groups as well. But now that's what I would have said, but I don't know if that's actually possible. Maybe that's an unrealistic position to expect from most people, that you could support your country and you could support your fellow people without being heavily invested in your culture and your nation. I don't know.
Sure, thanks.
Okay.
Next person is Rice. Let me see where he is. There he is. Go ahead, Rice, buddy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Destiny, do you think legalized should be legalized recreationally? If not, should it be legalized as a prescription drug for clinical use?
It should be recreational. Like, that's just
It should
dumb.
be recreational,
Yeah,
you think so?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think it should be recreational?
Because there's
Or
no reason for it not to
recreationally
be.
legalized?
I mean, alcohol is recreational and it's far more damaging than marijuana. Tobacco is recreational; it's far more damaging than marijuana. Why not?
Okay, thanks for the answer.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. I believe Socrates is next, if I'm not mistaken. 1 second. Yeah.
These nuts may remember me from such
Go
questions.
ahead, Socrates.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Socrates. Nuts, you may remember me from such questions as the Federalist Papers and the abortion question. I've got one more question. It's about the trip with Devin, right?
Oh wait, hold on.
Did you-
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Hold on 1 second. What?
Oh, fuck.
Is he outside? Wait.
Oh.
You what?
It's no state Wayne.
This can't be my fault.
It was.
Do you need help moving the cat? He's pretty big. I mean, I can do it for you if you need me to. Hold on.
Yo, Shabir.
Yes, sir.
From a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you enjoying this right now?
Quite a lot, actually.
You like
That's when it goes on like diatribes.
guy?
That's nice.
That's like you're a monster. You're scaring the people. Yeah, you are. You're scaring the people.
Is there another question, or is that the last one?
Socrates, and then.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm
Armadillo.
back. My cat was terrorizing my guests. All right, what's up?
All right. So, what was the last thing you heard?
Something about Devin.
You went to visit Devin, right, for a cabin in the woods type adventure.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you did. And this is a two-part question. So the first part, or it's a question with a follow-up question. Did you guys end up doing psychedelics?
Unfortunately, no. I only had edibles.
And then the second part of the question is, if I'm not a Gnelf and I'm not a Gnoblin, what am
Oh,
I?
ban him. He's the gnome. It's the gnome meme. Get him out of here.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You let him
Whoa.
know me.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I tried.
Sorry, just all right. Okay, who's next? 1 second. Okay, sure. We'll have Regan go ahead. Wait. Oh, for some reason I got
Hold
to
on.
say-
He's outside?
No, it's okay.
Nathan! Alright, I'm sorry. Hold on. My cat is very aggressive in the summer.
That's fine. Okay.
Finally got a sub for my favorite dude. Wowie.
Fucking Christ. Alright, I'm back. I'm sorry. Go ahead. We should be good now.
Rough cat. Okay, sure. I guess I'll allow Regan to finish this off 1 second. Where is he? There we go. Go ahead, Regan. Right there? Oh, he wants me to ask it. Okay, sure. In regards to culture, how effective do you think ostracizing is to enforce cultural norms? Do you see ostracization as a strictly bad thing, or do you think that it can be used properly and effectively to help society overall?
It doesn't seem to be effective. That's just like my intuitive feel on it. I would have to see data to point one way or the other. I mean, like, we ostracized a lot of racist views and whatnot over the past 20 years, and it doesn't seem like it helped at all. So, I mean, like, intuitively, it feels like it's not very effective. And then, like, bullying people and, like, bullying fat people and whatnot to get them to be not fat and stuff doesn't seem to be an effective way to do it. I think research shows that that's not an effective way to do it. I have to go back and, like, consult, like, studies, meta-analyses and shit. But it seems like, in general, like, bullying or being negative, like, forms of punishment don't seem to be as effective as forms of reinforcement in terms of like going or gearing people towards specific behaviors.
Okay, alright. We're trying to find out if Armo. Okay. Then what's this? Sorry. Okay, sure. He says he's unsure of the situation in the United States, but in the United Kingdom, we have grammar schools which select students aged 11 based on an entry test. What is your opinion on selective education at such an early age?
Selective is in like for people that are doing really well or doing really bad?
Yeah. Yeah, it has some like, testing. So I'm assuming the people who do well get into some better, like, I don't know if it's better education, maybe like higher levels or something.
I mean, I'd have to think more about it, but I don't see a problem with it right off the bat. It seems like an okay thing if somebody is capable of going into higher education, or not higher, but like more specialized, not more specialized, into more challenging education at an early age, that selecting for that is probably good.
Okay, okay. Is that all? You want to say about that? Destiny?
That I wanted to say about that? Yeah, that's all.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay. And with that, we conclude the AMA. Thank you very much, Destiny, for coming on. It's been very lovely having you here, answering all of our questions. It's been like 3 hours now. We appreciate it. We can't express how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we wanted to congratulate you on 100K subs on your channel.
Yeah,
right?
thanks.
Big milestone.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. What do I say? I'll be sure to link your YouTube channel and your Discord server towards the end, so people can chat with like-minded people or people who share your views. Thanks for coming out to Calliopean Club. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Destiny.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
They're just forcing him to leave.
Whew. Jesus, that was a long talk. The thing that sucks about doing this type of content is that it's really interesting for the people that are there, but for you guys, you're hearing me say the same things I've said like a million times before.
100K by the way, Butterfly.
Oh, and thanks for 100K subs, guys. We made it. Good job.
Yeah, sorry. I'm back.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Can I ask you questions?
Fucking knock yourself out, dude.
Okay.
Wait, who are you? Wait, introduce yourself.
I'm a random dude
Oh.
in Discord looking for like-minded humans, which is hard.
Okay. Wait, are you
Also-
do you know who I am, or are you just like am I just a random dude to you?
Random.
Oh, okay, cool. Alright, I'm streaming right now, so other people can hear your questions, just let you know, so don't say anything personal or...
Okay.
Yeah, knock yourself
Yeah,
out,
so
dude.
the question I wanted was summarize your life for me, but I assume just leave out the personal details and like summarize in a way like your background roughly, what are your interests, and do you have any ambitions, like what do you want to do in the future?
Damn, that's a pretty... It's a long question, my dude.
Okay, we can dismantle it. Skills, education, like what do you know?
Okay, so I went to school for music and I dropped out because I had to work too much. I've been doing like live streaming on the internet for quite a while. I would say that that's kind of my skills. I do a lot of stuff related to that and have been for quite a while.
Can you list some skills that are complementary to streaming, but before you started streaming you had no idea that these are complementary?
I guess a lot of stuff about like running my own business, managing my own brand, communicating with sponsors or other business people. A lot of stuff related to technology and software, hardware, things related to building computers and all the software and tech that goes into like streaming and setting up a good stream and learning about monitors and all that shit. I don't know, there's a lot of different shit. Dealing with online communities, working as a semi-public figure. I don't know, I guess we can go into like I don't know, it's pretty complicated. It's pretty involved.
So a lot of skills similar to how you would start any other modern business.
Yeah, I imagine there's probably a decent amount of carryover, sure.
Okay, what would be your like interests? Like what do you feel passionate about? What makes you tick?
My 4 major interests are probably video games, politics, music, and sex. Those are my 4 big ones.
Sex as a theory or as an abstract level, or like
as in like banging people, dude. I love that shit.
Can you elaborate a little in a way like what kind of sex, or what are you looking for it? Novelty, some kind of precision, expertise?
Yeah, let's go with expertise.
I'm curious.
Okay.
Like you're one of the I don't know many guys who answer these questions so directly. So very nice.
Okay.
Okay. Expertise. How do you approach it? Do you read books? Do you just tinker around a lot and test various new approaches?
Yeah, sure. I'd read. I guess I read a lot, and then like forums and erotica and shit, and then porn. Obviously, you get a lot of ideas from that, and then practicing on other people and all that.
Do you like write down notes, conclusions, draw models?
I don't think I've gotten to like the note taking test. Most of it is a pretty like physically involved process. So.
And how many years have you tried to advance your skills systematically in that field?
I'd say since I started probably, so over 10 years or whatever, 15 years maybe.
10 years of systematic approach. I would assume you have some really interesting insights.
I mean, I like to think I do, yeah.
But I assume you don't want to write a book or something, and you don't take notes.
I mean, I hate reading, so I can't imagine forcing somebody to read something that I've written. So I don't think I'm ever going to write a book.
Have you considered like hiring someone to monitor or assist or record when you do it, so others can benefit from your knowledge? Like sharing your knowledge?
No, I don't think. I don't know. I just all of my thoughts and everything changed so much over the years. I would feel uncomfortable writing a book. Like my thoughts might change dramatically in a couple years, and then I'll feel like an idiot for having written a book. I don't know.
Okay, wait. Before the last question, I'll write down some notes on your profile so I know that you really like sex.
Okay, I mean, that was just one of 4 listed, right?
No, but it's important in a way because it's different. It's uncommon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's common for people to say they like sex. It's uncommon for people to approach sex as something to be better at.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that, which is really unfortunate because a lot of people are really bad at it. And yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay, ambitions, goals, like
Just like a job
years.
interview? Wait, why do you need this many details about me?
Humans are interesting for me. Like-minded humans are more interesting for me. It's like a filter. Treat it as a filter.
As a filter?
Yeah, I'm filtering humans using these kinds of questions.
Okay.
If it makes sense.
Hold on one second. This is what I mean when I say I feel like Pike is useless. I don't like him. It might just be that the people that play him are fucking literal trash, and because they don't have experience on him, so they just pick him as he's OP. I don't like this guy. I feel like he's fucking worthless in lane. I feel like I'm laning 1v2. I keep expecting him to do something, and he's not doing anything ever. It's really irritating. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so what was your your last question?
Ambitions, goals, 2 to 20 years.
Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty content with life, so I just kind of do my streaming thing, and I hope that I continue to kind of steadily grow doing that. I guess right now the majority of my work is going to my YouTube, so.
So no specific goals. How about specific habits? Are you trying to change yourself?
A little bit. I have a little bit of a belly, so I'm kind of on a diet right now. I'm trying to lose that. And I try to continue. I try to continually improve like my personal philosophy. I do a lot of like discussion and whatnot on the internet, so I'm kind of constantly trying to improve that.
Wait, just to click. I'm not sure if I understand. Regarding the discussion in the internet, what exactly are you trying to improve?
For a long time, or I guess like one of the reputations I have right now is I kind of do a lot of internet debate, and I'm trying to continue to improve my craft at that in terms of having good conclusions and making sure my data is correct and making sure my thoughts on different issues is as correct as they can be.
By debating, you mean trying to win win an argument or something, not trying to know new stuff or approach to new
No, so
arrive to
my
new-
goal is to be the most correct. So whatever the, I guess you could say, pursuit of knowledge, to have the most factually correct position on a particular, on a given like topic, I guess, is my goal.
Does it also allow for you to maybe realize that the topic you thought is important or the topic you are arguing might not actually be a relevant topic? Like stuff like abstract stuff like this.
Abstract stuff like what?
Wait, yeah, maybe an example is a better one. Okay, examples are the, how to say the racial thing and the woman-male thing in English.
Interracial?
How do you say when females think, or not think, but talk about females being oppressed? There's the word for
Feminism?
Yes.
Privilege? Patriarchy?
Privilege, privilege.
Yeah, what about it?
Like people like arguing about privilege, if there's a privilege, if there's not a privilege. But if you model it or abstract it out, it comes down to talking about opportunities or outcomes. Do you know opportunities and outcomes problem?
Yeah, what about
it? In a way that when people argue about privilege, they don't usually argue about opportunities and outcomes. So in this case, if you like debating, are you prone to, or would be acceptable for you to acknowledge that maybe debating at privilege is not meaningful in when you want to achieve something or arrive to a knowledgeable conclusion?
No, I think privilege is a pretty important concept to discuss. I think privilege has to do with opportunities and not necessarily outcomes.
Okay, so you already made the leap of getting to opportunities from privilege. Okay, then it's a bad example. Yeah, sorry if I'm not making myself clear enough. Yeah, let's discard this topic. Any other things besides sex that you feel really interested towards, but that are like uncommon topics?
I mean, I guess politics and music. Like, I'm a musician. I don't just like listen to music. I like to play stuff, but I don't pursue that, I guess, as much as a craft anymore.
Do you know what do you think about the relation between music and mathematics?
I don't think there's much of a relationship there at all.
Dude.
What?
Shaking my head.
This guy again.
I've heard a lot of things that music and math can work together, but nah, y'all can go on.
Yeah, I'm back. I think I should mute to this pegging guy.
Damn, that's mean.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute him. It's not mean, it's appropriate reaction, I think. Regarding sex, do you have any interesting ideas how to approach sex as a topic, as science, as in a way like ideas how we as humans or mankind could advance the topic faster?
Advance it in what way? What do you mean?
So, okay, wait, I don't know how old are you?
17. No, I'm 29. Sorry.
29. Let's say you are, I don't know how well you remember, let's say 10 years ago when you started, you knew very little. But back then, when you noticed some, let's say, 40-year-olds, twice your age, they already knew a lot about sex, like your parents.
Okay.
Sex and relationships and stuff. But they, you had to start again in a way. Like most parents do not teach their children. And schools only teach about safety, like basic safety. So ideas and approaches how to not only give new knowledge to 20-year-olds, but how to advance a field as science, like you advance math or computer science or any other field in life.
Well, I don't know if I would view like the act of sex as like a science, more so like an act of, I guess, something more similar to like an athletic event, or not necessarily that, but like a hobby event, like being a musician or something. So I guess I just don't know how to answer that question.
How about relationships? Same question for relationships between different sex, same sex.
Like what specifically? That's like a really vague question. What about relationships?
Again, similar problem. Like, okay, any specific relationship style, let's say monogamy, they don't teach that school. They don't advance it as science. People do not talk about it, do not think about how can we improve it.
Yeah, I get like how to improve relationships, or
yeah, models like how we improve our not only knowledge, but maybe there's a better behavior, even better relationships model out there. Like let's say any other field, computer science. Like we are people in the field are constantly thinking, how can we do something better, more efficiently, more, I don't know, even more beautifully, like whatever parameter you take.
Well, I think the problem is that we can measure our progress in those fields using pretty objective standards that we can all agree on. So for instance, like I think most people agree that computers that have like more clock speed are better than those that have less clock speed or more cores, whereas for relationships we don't have like the same standards by which we can judge those.
Makes sense.
So yeah, it's harder to like, because we don't even know which direction we would try to be improving at, you know?
Then again, counter example would be any new software someone invents in computer science or under the field of computer science that we didn't have before. Software in a way that does stuff that we even couldn't picture we want to do, like computer games, for example. Like they are invented in a way from the scratch. We didn't have computer games before. At some point we did. Now we are advancing them.
Yeah, but those are I mean, those are all driven by like market demand and stuff. Like relationships and whatnot, I don't think are.
Okay, market demand as a motivator benchmark. Interesting. So your question might be, how can we incentivize people to pay for sex education or incentivize people to pay for having a better sexual relationship experience?
I guess if people are interested in it. I don't know how much people are necessarily interested in those things. There might be other things that they have to figure out mentally before that.
Doesn't get better than this.
Okay, maybe we should switch topic if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, sure.
Yeah, I like switching topics. Let's see. Do you know what reframing means?
Reframing?
Yeah.
I know the colloquial definition. I don't know about it like a psychological sense, I don't think.
Can you summarize the definition you know?
If you reframe a topic, it's usually like you take something that somebody thinks about and you change an aspect of it to let you think about it in a different way. Like, let's reframe this argument in a way so you can understand, I guess, either by analogy or...
Yeah, very good. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
What do you think about the claim gossip as an aid to bonding in social groups?
What about it?
What do you think about this claim? Does it make sense?
Yeah, from a factual point of view, sure, it makes sense. Anytime you share a secret or somebody with somebody, you're probably building some sort of trust bond. Or if you're complaining about something and you both have a similar complaint, that probably builds some sort of friendship bond to you.
What about building trust itself? Do you think it's tied to time?
I mean, time would probably be one variable, but I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to measure it too. Or there's a lot of different variables.
How would you approach if you want to make someone trust you really fast? Do you have ideas? What would you do?
Collateral. So like if you trust me, then you get this thing, or like if I break your trust, then you lose, or I would lose something, right? Like some. Do you understand what collateral means, or do I need to define that?
Yeah.
Some sort of collateral is the best way.
Do you mean like in using legal system, like signing a document, or?
No, I think signing documents is where. Well, maybe in a business sense, sure. But like, let's say, trusting somebody with a secret, or trusting somebody with something that would damage you if it were to get out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Now I get it. Very nice. This implies, of course, the other party can evaluate that the secret is somehow important to you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, new question, more tied to your expertise. How to design or change what you are sexually attracted to?
I don't know if that can be changed, or to what degree that can be changed. I'm not sure. I'd have to read research on that.
You don't have a personal experience? You haven't self-observed yourself and noticed something?
I mean, my sexuality has changed over time, but I don't know if I could, like, specifically gear myself. Like, if I want to become sexually attracted towards something, I don't know if I could, like, make that happen. Like, if there's, like, a fetish that you could force yourself to develop, I don't know if that's possible.
You use some kind of word I really liked about this being not a binary thing, but not knowing, like, how much you can change it.
Sure.
What word did you use? Like a scale, spectrum? No.
Maybe a spectrum?
Okay. What about? Oh wait, do you know about the Pavlov or Pavlov's dog?
Yeah.
Also called classical conditioning, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe using Pavlov to change your preference.
Yeah, I just don't know if that works for like sexuality. That type of like classical conditioning can form like very basic responses. So so like let's say that I've got like a picture, and every time I show you like a woman's neck, I like give you a hand job. Could I eventually condition you to become sexually attracted to women's necks? I don't know if that would work that way. I don't know if sexuality is a little bit more complicated than that, right? Like those Pavlovian responses are usually very simplistic in terms of what they're tied to.
So you haven't tried something like this, yeah?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello?
Is the interview over?
I don't know.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, he left. Wait, what the what the fuck was that?
Dude, I have no clue. I jumped in here to like try to get you the link, and then he just asked you questions.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
I made a pause now.
You're here. Oh shit.
I like questions. It's okay.
Okay.
All right, man. Let me. Are you done with that game?
I'm working on it. Okay, it's about 5 minutes.
I mean, I think you're working on it. Let me hop back in there. What's your KD at?
I'm getting fucked, dude. This Kaz is just sitting on my dick so fucking. He's like showing up everywhere. I thought I was getting stream tonight. This guy's insanely on me, but like the rest of my team is winning for it, so whatever. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. So do you? I mean, just off the top of your head, do you think you could fake piano skills?
Oh yeah. Well, but that's because I know how to play piano. So I mean.
Sure. I think this video actually works. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a piano right now. But,
okay. Well, I've got one right next to me, so I can't wait to look at it.
Perfect. By the way, that thing you linked the other day, that when I was asking you about the your discussion with Whoop Whoop, was that what you were emailing with her?
Yeah, that's
like
more or less
kind of,
what our discussions have been about so far. Yeah.
Okay.
Huh?
Hello?
What the hell's going on in here?
We're hanging out, dude. Why?
What's up, man?
What's going on, dude?
I'm trying to get Destiny to watch a video and give me his take on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. And then Meddlesome was giving him just like this random interview.
It sounded like an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
What were you guys talking about up there, dude?
What?
What were you guys talking about up there? Like secondhand, like leather and stuff?
It's essentially freeganism.
Okay. And
Yeah,
they were
that's
arguing
like-
against it. They were saying that that's still like an ethical
It was just
problem.
Isel. It was just me versus Isel. Yeah, he thinks just having the product is immoral. He doesn't judge. He doesn't judge things based off their consequences.
Right. It's like as a rule, it's just wrong to even have it. Yeah.
Sure.
Gotcha. I mean, you might as well watch this video.
Just watch the video, Destiny, dude. What the fuck?
Fucking just DM it to me, bro. Shoot me that DM.
You're not getting a lot done here, man.
Hey,
I'm
you
watching.
know what? Actually, hold up 1 second. Destiny, you need to unban me from your server. I was wrongfully banned.
If you got banned, you gotta contact one of the fucking dudes, dude. Because every time I unban you guys for getting banned, I always get in trouble, and I find out that you were like acting like a huge fucking retard, and that's why you actually got banned. Okay, I don't trust you, dudes.
Well, you don't trust me?
No, I don't fucking trust you. What the fuck?
Bro, I'm the kid you said would kill himself if he could. Like, I'm trustworthy, bro. I don't
That
know.
would kill himself if he could? Wait, what?
We had that antinatalism discussion. Remember that?
Oh, you're that dude. Oh god, get out of here. Oh.
Bro, I went in there and people trolled, and then I got banned for joining with them.
Damn, dude, that sucks.
Alright,
That's a rough life, man.
Alright, did you get that link?
Yeah, I got it, dude. I'll click it in a sec, alright?
Alright, you guys have a good time. I'll catch you guys later.
Alright, have fun. Be careful, buddy.
So the problem I have right now is that I basically have to choose what I can do smoothly. So I can either watch your stream smoothly on my laptop, but not watch your stream smoothly, and be able to talk to you on Discord properly with decent internet connection on my phone.
Yeah, you're not missing much. Don't worry, dude.
Or vice versa.
You're definitely not missing much.
Yeah. Every time, like, my screen will freeze, and then it'll unfreeze, and it'll be like 2 and 8, 2 and 9. So yeah. Do you mainly stream League?
It's like half and half right now, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan, man. Anyway, I've been watching your stuff for a while, at least all the debates and everything.
Oh, well, thanks,
Definitely
buddy.
changed my mind on a couple of things.
I try, dude.
So you just wanted to hang out in the vegan Discord server today while you were streaming?
Yeah, I like being in here. Everybody disagrees with me, so I feel right at home.
I think everybody disagrees with you on just like that one thing, though, for the most part, I think.
Oh, no, I think this room is pretty
What else?
right-leaning socially. It seems like it.
Oh, you think so?
I don't know. That's not the impression that I get.
I can see that impression.
Yeah. And then veganism, the whole like vegan versus anti-vegan thing is pretty closely tied to like your personal ethics or philosophy. Like you have to get to some real fundamental questions. So it's a good disagreement to have to flesh out your own position. So
Sure. I can agree with that. And are you pretty much like satisfied with your position, at least the most, like
Yeah,
as
I
far as
think-
your thoughts on it recently? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
What do you do for life? Are you in school still? Are you working?
So right now I'm actually doing an MCAT prep program. Studying to take that for the most part. Yeah.
Gotcha. MCAT. What was that for? Is that lawyer or
It's
doctor
for,
shit? What is it?
For doctor med school.
Doctor med school. Gotcha.
Yeah. I was curious. So I remember hearing you say something like if it was easier for you, like you probably would do it. Like if you had more options available to you, like vegan wise.
Maybe.
Like if you literally had like a replacement like that would satisfy you for like everything, like whatever you like to eat. You know what I mean?
Oh, then yeah, I
Like, that
probably
was
for
readily
dietary
available.
reasons. I think I might.
Sure.
Yeah. Just for the health reasons. I started drinking that
Yeah.
Soylent stuff now, and it's pretty good. So.
Soylent?
Yeah, it's like some drink that like it replaces. It's a meal replacement drink. It's 400 calories.
Oh,
and
that's
it's like
right.
20
Yeah. From the movie, the play on the movie. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. There used to be another one that I tried out a few times. I don't know if it was necessarily vegan. It was a long time ago, but it was called like Space Nutrient Station. I like that one because they had a bunch of different options, like a higher protein, lower protein, different options for that.
Oh, no clue.
I think they shut down though. Actually, chat, Destiny said Soylent. But yeah, I'm a fucking soy boy, yeah, that's right. God, I wish this shit didn't freeze as much as it does.
Yeah,
Are you almost... How's your game doing? How's it going?
It's doing. I don't know how far I am.
It's doing?
It's
My bad.
doing though.
Oh, you're 2-11 now. Okay.
Yeah, good game.
If you have to answer my questions, does this make you play worse?
No, it's fine. I'm here by choice. So.
If anything, it's too late, dude.
All right, I'll
So
watch
I
everything.
can ask more questions because you're already losing.
Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me watch a video. One sec. Give me 4.5 minutes.
This is how you fake being good at the piano. There are many chords and scales and techniques that a person who becomes good at the piano must learn. F all of that. We're not trying to get good at the piano. We're just trying to fake it. Anyone who actually plays the piano will see right through what we are doing. F them, they could go swallow a fork. Ain't nobody got time to be spending
Yeah,
8
as far
hours
as
a
I know,
day,
he
7
looks
days a
like
week
he's got like
practicing
some like fake tattoos and stuff on his arm. I don't know.
Sure.
piano.
It's like a silly video, but like I
requires
think
you to learn 3 main things. The 4 main chords of any song in rock and roll. C, G.
All right, so let me know if what he says
Every
like you
single
could pretty
song
much
follows these 4
get away
chords
with.
in a different order or in the same order. Let it go, let it go. And then the correct finger spacing.
Yeah, see, I don't
and at
even
that
be able to
point,
watch it
all
right
it takes
now
is
on
random
my
button
laptop.
pressing, and you're good to go. The 4 chords are located here. C, G, A flat, and F. You'll always start with your pinky on one of the 4 of those chords. Start with your left hand, pinky on C, and you skip 1, 2, 3, and then land on the 4th. And then you skip 1, 2, and land on the 5th. This is the spacing. Always, no matter what your hand is doing, it will be this spacing here. Remember this. No matter where you go on those 4 starting positions, here, 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 same spacing. When your left hand is in the right position, from your thumb, skip 1, and then there's your right hand's first position here. So it's skip 1, pointer finger, skip 2, pinky. This is the position. This always stays the same no matter where you go. So as long as you maintain steps 1 and 2, you can hit any button sequence you want. The more random, the more skilled you're going to look, and it will still sound good, especially since you're staying in the pentatonic scale. So with your right hand, you can just go crazy. It will still sound good, especially since you're staying in the pentatonic scale. So with your right hand, you can just go crazy. This is called a sustain pedal, I think. It makes the notes sustain. Everything sounds prettier when you hold down this pedal. Hold the sustain down with your foot, always. Make sure, when you're done f***ing around, everyone's impressed, do a run all the way up the keys. Starting at the C, right here. With your pinky.
What do you think is so
in the
far?
correct spacing.
I don't think this would be very impressive if you did that.
I'm not. I mean, maybe not
Run
impressive,
up
but like at least to fake
piano.
a little bit, right? You don't think so? Like to somebody who doesn't know how to
To
play
somebody
piano.
who doesn't know at all, I don't know. I'd have to see it in person to see how they react. I guess I'm not sure.
And then immediately switch to here, which is the next C up, and do the same thing.
Apparently, there's like tons of videos just like these, like discussing how to fake piano skills.
Yeah,
Do that a few times to get comfortable, and then you can just hammer it.
Like inadvertently, like learning how to play piano. That was.
Welcome to the League of Dreaming.
So not impressive, but definitely like at least something.
I mean, it might work.
Some semblance of it, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you could do it. I guess it would work.
All right, thanks, buddy. I guess I'll see you later.
Yeah, sure thing. Be careful, okay?
Yeah, take care.
You're welcome. Subscribe to my channel. I post videos on Mondays and Wednesdays.
All right, what's up, buddy?
Wait, was that for me?
Yeah, how you doing, dude?
Thinking about what to do. Found your stream finally.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Notice this is an interesting exercise even for me, because while asking questions, I can train or self-observe my anxiety, like related to public speaking.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, very nice. Do you want some easy questions?
Whatever you want to do, dude.
Yeah, you can always say no or skip or whatever.
No, I'm a really open person. I don't care, dude.
Nice. Okay, let's see. Yeah, sorry for like emphasis on sex, but I'm like capitalizing on you liking sex a lot.
Sure,
or, like,
no problem,
enjoying the
dude.
topic.
Whatever makes you
Yeah.
happy, okay?
Okay. So this kind of claim, when females, or you say women, I guess, when women crave for adventure and security, security in that is not binary. Are you following?
When women crave
For
adventure and
And
security.
security, yeah, from a male.
Okay, what's not binary?
Security.
What is-
It's
what
not
do you-
binary in a way that security is not something someone achieves and then you have security for them, but it's more like a spectrum.
Oh.
So you can be more secure, less secure, even more secure. Make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So this is like a premise that females crave for adventure and security, while security is not a binary. And the claim is that this sometimes ends up with craving for extreme adventure and extreme security at the same time, which conflict.
Okay.
Make sense? No? Maybe?
Sure, if you are too adventurous, it can be at the detriment to your security, right? Or if you try to be too secure, it can be at the detriment to your adventurousness.
Wait, let me check this word, detriment.
Detriment as in like it takes away from something, deters you from
Mhm.
something.
Yes. And from a female perspective, your potential partner, I assume you like females in current model.
Yeah, I think so.
Have you experienced this?
Women
kind of
that
thing?
search for security and adventure?
Yes,
Um,
from you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's, never mind, it's not a very good question because I have to maybe ask some private questions from you. Maybe not. Can you evaluate your own, like, how secure you think your lifestyle is for a potential mate?
Pretty secure, I would say. I've had the same career for 8 years and I make more money than most people, so I mean, those are probably pros.
Okay.
I got my own house. And I've got like a really big internet reputation, so I can't like rape you and then beat the shit out of you, because I would probably lose my following over it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, no, I'm gonna skip to another question. I need to ponder on the wording more.
Okay.
Yeah. So next claim or question. It's a claim. Males have sex to bond, and females have sex after they bond. What do you think about this claim? Do you agree, disagree, thoughts?
I mean, I think it can be true. I don't think it's necessarily true in all cases.
Most questions or claims imply that, or like, I understand how humans works and how statistics work, so almost anything I say is like applicable for.
I would argue that where society is today, that it's possible that that claim holds true for the majority of people. Sure.
Have you again encountered it, like experienced it?
Yeah, although I try to avoid women that would have sex because of emotional reasons, because that's not typically why I do. So, I mean, that would be pretty one-sided.
What are your thoughts or relationships to novelty? Or you as a male, I assume you crave for novelty, which translates to new females.
I mean, yeah, I do. What about it?
You do as you know you crave, and you do as you practically or you experience it. So you switch out your females from time to time.
Yeah, sure, all of the above, I guess.
No, just curious, making sure we are how similar or not similar we are.
Okay.
And your approach is to things that often go against the social norm.
Probably, I think so. Okay, I muted for 1 second. I'm back. Pike is worthless. He's fucking worthless.
Discord voice chat as a background noise, like an ambient or white noise.
For like when I'm playing games or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now, right?
Yeah, but you are now also talking, like answering questions, but in a way like you being muted and.
Not generally, because if people know I'm there, they act much different. So they'll start saying and doing like crazy dumb shit because they know they've got an audience.
Yeah, makes sense. So I'm gonna skip that question.
Don't be jealous.
What are your thoughts or experience regarding the word manipulation? I know it has negative connotation.
Sword manipulation?
No, just manipulation, like an abstract word.
Like manipulating
Pavlov.
people, or?
Yeah, manipulating people. Manipulating people, yourself, like changing your habits using manipulation, changing people around you, incentivizing them.
I mean, I try not to change people around me, I guess, too much. If I don't like the way a person is, I don't really bother.
What if you see that this person himself or herself wants to change and can see value in that change, but for some reason he's not able to, or you see a way for her or him to like advance faster? Would you then consider manipulation?
Like consider helping them change or whatever?
Yeah, let's call it helping, because it's a matter of interpretation.
Sure. I mean, I guess, yeah, if I can be of assistance.
Have you ever encountered or experienced manipulation in a way that someone tells you he's going to manipulate you, so you know he's going to manipulate you, and then he's going to manipulate you? Like, as confusing as it might sound.
I don't think so. I don't carry many like close friends, so I don't know many people that would even be close enough to me to try that.
Okay. You being interested in politics, are you also interested in complementary topics like macroeconomics?
Yeah, they're kind of intertwined a little bit, right?
What else intertwines? Psychology, mass psychology?
Yeah, psychology, economics, sociology, some sciences, depending on what you're talking about. If you're getting into like race realism shit, sure.
Basic statistics.
Yeah, stats, yeah.
Oh, do you think in your mind, do you think in probabilities mostly, or do you think in like finite clauses or like Boolean, binary?
I mean, it depends on the topic, I guess. Like if we're talking like morality or ethics or whatever, we're probably generally talking like binary yes or no's. If we were talking like sociology or policy for the government or whatever, or legal stuff, you're usually talking shades of gray, probability-based stuff, society, right?
Do you what do you do when someone asks you a question and the structure of the question, like, in a way you don't want to answer the question because the structure of the question is flawed in a way that it forces you to answer
Generally, if I'm being like railroaded into a certain answer or something, I'll generally challenge the premise if I feel like it's leading me down somewhere that I don't enjoy. So like earlier when you said you switch out your females, I almost challenged that premise because the verbiage there makes it sound like I'm in possession of females that I like switch out. It's kind of strange, but I don't think that that's what you necessarily intended. I think it's just a language barrier thing, so I didn't challenge that premise. But if your next question would have been more pointed there, then I would have challenged the initial premise to kind of reframe the conversation.
Okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
But this is like specific to debates because you can't back down. Like you can't ignore the guy who asks a question.
No, I would very pointedly like rephrase or I would reject the premise. That would be what I would take issue with. Yeah.
What if someone repeatedly and on purpose? Maybe you don't know, of course, it's on purpose, but repeatedly uses this style.
I would try to point that out. I would hope I can identify it in the spot. I would tell him that that we would have to agree to disagree and move on because I would reject the premise.
Are you familiar with some of the models, how to find the disagreement source between two speaking people? Like, for example, double crooks or...
I'm not familiar with formal models, no. But, I mean, I've done enough of it recreationally that I think I've got a decent handle on it. But no, I'm not familiar with, like, formal models. They might be better.
Let's see. I'm trying to find questions that are like more common in a way that aren't very specific. I assume you don't know what optionality means.
Optionality? I do not know.
Yeah. How often do you plan or make plans in your life?
It depends on what I'm doing.
If at all. Like plans for in case you fail or don't achieve something you wanted to achieve in micro, like days, weeks, months.
I guess I don't right now. I don't have like any super clear goals that I'm working towards. I just kind of stream and do my thing, so I don't have any like accountability measures or something that I would like implement if I failed at achieving something or whatever.
Maybe I can find a very common example. Like, let's say you need to travel somewhere. Do you think in a way like, okay, maybe you fly a plane or something? Like, do you think in means of what if I can't fly a plane? Like a plane, what do you say?
Oh no, I'm pretty open. So I just traveled across the western United States. And I'm traveling pretty soon again. I typically just have like my rough destination in mind, and then if something comes up or something goes wrong, I just kind of like figure it out from there.
Okay. You don't have a lot of dates or like times you need to meet.
Nah, everything is like really loose. That's usually how I schedule things out. So I prefer it.
Yeah, very good. That nice. Actually, yeah, interesting idea. This kind of scheduling makes like problem with planning like meaningless or
a little bit, but I'm only capable of doing that because my job is so freeform as well, right? If I'm on a more strict job, then my timetables would have to be more strict as a result, probably.
And you're not meeting a lot of other people who have timetables.
Or I'm meeting people, but it's just like I'll see you for 3 days, not meeting somebody at 7:30 a.m. at a certain spot or whatever. Although sometimes I schedule stuff. So like tomorrow I've got like an Ask Me Anything I'm doing for a Discord server at 2 p.m. So I mean like that's scheduled, I guess. I don't even know what he does, dude. I hate fucking Pyke. God, I hate it on my team. I'm gonna start banning it when I see my support pick it. I just hate having him. He hasn't done anything in lane all game. Every play I've made, I've like had to make with the jungler being there or on somebody else fucking up, and then I've just had to play like a 1v2 lane the entire time. He's so fucking worthless, dude. He gets banned every game I play too. Yeah, like when I see him on the enemy team, he's not good either. It's not like Yasuo syndrome where it's like when they're on the enemy team, they're gods. It's like, nah, even when I see him on the enemy team, he's just bad. He just doesn't do anything. I just think it's a bad fucking champ. Or maybe it's really good if the people playing him are really good.
Okay, last question.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a claim. If you can't be satisfied with what you have now, you will not be satisfied when you get anything you want. Or if.
There might be like a nugget of truth to that, but I don't know if that's always true. Like if you need like a kidney transplant and you really need a kidney, I think you'd be happier with one than without one. Like.
Yeah, I was thinking about that regarding Maslow hierarchy of needs. You know it?
Yeah, the one with self-actualization at the top and like bare necessities on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna make a break, so I'm officially out of questions. Have a nice something.
Okay. Have a good one, dude. But nice something, guys.